Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following episode. My name is Colton Brown. Joining me is Andrew Meadows.
I'm here, but
Hello.
so is someone else.
Oh, and hello to Mr. Henrique Jaime, back with us for some more Marvel goodness.
Hello. Can't stay away.
It's funny. I have looked, and obviously I've spent a fair share of my time editing and trying to catch up on things. And in fact, I'm drinking champagne right now because for the first time in 6 months, I finally caught up on our backlog of episodes and had until we're recording this now, I had everything edited. Everything released. It was a miracle. First time in, I think, 6+ months. I think first time since before I took the bar exam in July. So put that in perspective. But I was looking, because obviously I've been doing lots of editing and lots of stuff with the podcast. We've done a lot of Marvel stuff lately. And of course, every time we do Marvel stuff, we bring in Enrique because he's the perfect man for the job. But yeah, I mean, 2020 was a dead year for Marvel. 2021... not so much.
Oh no!
Between 4 movies and all the Disney Plus shows, it's been a lot. It's been a lot to consume. It's been great, admittedly, but it's certainly probably fulfilled probably close to half of the episodes that we've done this year.
Wow.
But yeah, it's fun. We're back for more. In fact, we're doing 2 episodes on some Marvel stuff. So what we're doing on this one is we're talking Spider-Man, and we're talking the previous 5 Spider-Man films. I guess before the Marvel Studios relaunch of Spider-Man, before Marvel Studios finally got their mitts back onto the Spider-Man property, which had long been owned and is technically still owned by Sony, the film rights anyway. So we were going to talk about the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy, and we're going to talk about the 2 Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man films. And we're doing that is because they have a connection to the next film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Spider-Man No Way Home. From the trailers for Spider-Man No Way Home, we know that some of the villains will be reappearing in Spider-Man No Way Home. So we thought it would be a good time. Let's revisit these old films, see what they have to offer. How do they stack up compared to the new Spider-Man films that we've gotten with Tom Holland as Peter Parker / Spider-Man? And I think for all of us, it'd been a minute since we'd seen any of these films. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, it's been a long while.
Yeah, that's fair. I actually started rewatching the Tobey Maguire ones before you even pitched this idea, so it was kind of perfect timing.
Really? Yeah.
And I had never seen Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Oh, well, he was in for a treat then.
Yeah, so yeah. It was awesome to rewatch these. I actually rewatched all of them with Sarah, so it was actually a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah, very good. Yeah. Anna and I worked our way through all 5 over the past probably 2 weeks. We did it in the past 2 weeks, and so yeah, it's fun, revisiting some of these films, especially when you haven't seen them in so long. Particularly the Raimi trilogy, I think, probably the most nostalgic for me, yes. Probably for us, without going on too big of a limb. But yeah, I think it's going to be a very fun conversation, working our way through the history of Spider-Man, and then we'll come back next episode and talk about No Way Home. And, that'll kind of complete our coverage of Spider-Man for probably at least a little while. So this is bonus episode 25, and it's also episode 191 because I'm caught up on editing. There's really not going to be a huge space of time where this is going to exist as a bonus episode for our supporters on Patreon. However, nonetheless, there are a few of them, Enrique included. I'm sure he doesn't listen to the episodes that he himself is on, but for any of those other Patreon supporters, thank you for supporting us on Patreon. Hopefully you enjoy this for the theoretically few days that is a timed exclusive for you.
Yeah.
And for I all the regular listeners.
So I do come back
there you go.
And just listen to it. And
I got a question for you now that you're caught up on recording on a side note.
Yeah, go for it. What do you got?
I think it was Ghostbusters that I got the wine snuck up on me real quick.
Yep.
You got lubed up.
You were a few wines in, as I recall. 2 wines in, aka a bottle and a half, because that math always checks out.
That's a drink for you.
So what's your question?
My question was it a stark difference between where we left off and where we jumped back in?
We addressed it in the episode, and I left that bit in to explain any odd discrepancies. I thought my voice got a little deeper. I think I went from also slightly lubed up to just like, I'm pretty much sober. I think your transition, you were just wording better, you know? I think you said as much, you know? You went from, pretty good, you know, to you know, fleshing out your thoughts and, you know, saying a few nice things about it on the record. The one thing I did notice, and I can't remember if it was you or myself, talked about how like the pacing was good, and then 5 minutes later, after it went into the new recording, like, yeah, pacing wasn't very good. So there were some inconsistencies probably as a result of thinking about it, sitting on it for another night or a couple nights, I think, as it turned out, and coming back to it. But it's all in good fun. It made for a better episode, I'm sure. Anyone that listened to it probably got a few laughs out of the hard transition. But hey, what are you going to do? We work with what we have, but we'll see if we can do this one in a single night. We could probably pull that off, right?
I think so.
All right. So I don't know what our next bonus episode will be. Maybe it'll have a longer timed exclusive window, but I do just want to finish my thought. If you are not a supporter on Patreon, you're listening to this as episode 191 on the regular feed. Totally cool. We appreciate you listening, obviously. But if you want to listen to any bonus episodes we do or get early access to all of our regular episodes, patreon.com/watchreviewrepeat is the way to do that. It's $2 a month. And those are probably the two biggest advantages, is getting some special episodes and getting early access, which was a great perk for the last 6 months because it was very early access on most of those. Hopefully I could stay on top of things and we can not, enter crisis mode of having 2 to 3 episodes in the backlog at any given moment. I'm not taking any bar exams in the near future. Just working and watching Spider-Man and talking Spider-Man. So that's what we're here for. Let's talk some Spider-Man. So what I wanted to do to start with is read the entire Wikipedia page of Spider-Man.
Okay, let's do it.
To our listeners. Spider-Man is a superhero created by writer-editor Stan Lee and writer-artist Steve Ditko. I won't do that. I give you one sentence. But I did want to say a word about Spider-Man. Enrique, if you want to jump in at any point, you're kind of our comics guy, so if you have some thoughts on Spider-Man, feel free to come in at any point.
Go ahead.
I just, Spider-Man, everyone knows Spider-Man. I don't think anyone needs to be explained what Spider-Man is. I feel like between Spider-Man 1, The Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man Homecoming, and really any Spider-Man movie kind of covers the ground, I think, pretty adequately. Spider-Man. He's Peter Parker. He's Spider-Man. He's got spider powers, swings webs. It's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Debuted 1962 in a comic book called Amazing Fantasy number 15. Again, like I said, written by Stan Lee, art by Steve Ditko. I think Jack Kirby also worked on the cover for it, if I'm not mistaken. So a long storied character in the Marvel Universe, with a rich history, a rich rogues gallery, Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, Venom, The Rhino is an absolute classic. The Rhino, as we all know him. Some all-timers in there. Some all-timers in the villains gallery. Classic characters. Mary Jane Watson. Who else? Gwen Stacy. Harry Osborn. Yeah. So you got some... You got Aunt May. Can't forget about Aunt May. Uncle Ben. Can't forget about Uncle Ben. Some really, really great characters, just an awesome things. But in terms of making the leap from page to screen, obviously we're going to talk about the Tobey films. We're going to talk about the Garfield films. We're not going to talk about the Tom Holland films on this episode because we've already done that. I think we did bonus episodes that included Spider-Man Homecoming, and then we would have just covered Far From Home as a regular episode when it came out, I'm pretty sure. And then obviously, as I said, we'll be doing No Way Home next. But there's been a few attempts to kind of bring Spider-Man to life in terms of films. There were some TV films in the 70s, which I've definitely never seen, for the record, starring Nicholas Hammond as Spider-Man. was a Japanese Spider-Man.
I've seen a couple of those.
Yeah, there's actually
TV show
on Disney Plus. I think it's Disney Plus. There's a documentary. Like, they don't have the original. That'd be amazing. If anybody knows how to stream it, please let me know. But they have a documentary about the Japanese Spider-Man, and it is fascinating. Like, the whole story behind it, like getting Stan Lee to go over to Japan and like pitch this and like everything behind it. It's really interesting and just so odd, and I love it.
Yeah, well, I've never seen it, admittedly, but I've seen clips and pictures and stuff like that. It's just a fascinating entry in Spider-Man lore. And in terms of bringing it to life in America, there were a few attempts made. I think it changed hands, like rights holders' hands, a few times. At one point, James Cameron wrote a script treatment for it. I don't know if you guys knew that.
No, I don't think I did.
It's I think you can actually read it online. It's not good. It's bad and weird and very adult. Like just no chance it would have gotten off the ground. Used Electro and Sandman as the villains. It would have climaxed with the battle atop the World Trade Center. Obviously, that would not have aged terribly well. And according to the Wikipedia that I'm looking at, it was heavy on profanity and had Spider-Man and Mary Jane having sex on the Brooklyn Bridge. So,
nice.
That's great. However,
Peter.
and
Peter Parker.
I can't believe they didn't keep that. There is one thing that made it from the Cameron treatment into the Sam Raimi films, and so we'll get into Spider-Man 1 momentarily, and that is the concept, a very controversial concept, organic webbing. What is it all about? Eliminating the use of web shooters from the comics, and having webs come out of his body organically. I don't know. It was a big deal when the Raimi films came out. I feel like it's kind of just accepted these days that organic webbing is just an interpretation of the Spider-Man character, but certainly not true to the comic books. And subsequent adaptations have addressed that, obviously. So yeah, there's a weird history. Things end up in Sony's hands, and May 3rd, 2002 heralds the arrival of Spider-Man.
We will talk about these organic web shooters.
Oh, we have to.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, why don't I set up Spider-Man, and then if you want to go there, go for it, and if not, we'll go somewhere else and circle back to that. We'll swing back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm on fire today.
I know this is not a regular episode, but I had a fun fact in mind.
Oh, I didn't mean to unnecessarily cut you off.
No.
From offering a fun fact. Well, before we get into Spider-Man, then tell us a fun fact.
Right. So this is less so for the viewers because they can't see this, but right now, this is not the main fun fact.
Oh,
that's
nice.
excellent. It's excellent. We should describe it for the listeners.
Right. So I'm wearing my Christmas sweater for this year, and it is 3 Spider-Men pointing at each other like the 60s cartoon, but it's actually the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, and the Tom Holland Spider-Man.
What a
nice.
sweater.
All in Santa wear. But that's not the true fun fact. That was just
that was fun. Very fun though. Come on, we have to admit that was fun.
Maybe not a fact, but I remember, and I can't remember the source, but according to some article on the internet, which has to be true, Spider-Man,
as everything on the internet is, of course,
was the most popular comic book character, beating out Batman, which I thought was kind of surprising, but this was a worldwide kind of thing. And if you look at the number of movies, and especially recently, that kind of makes sense. But, you're talking about probably the most popular, it's not I can't remember if it was favorite or popular. I want to say it was popular, and he was number 1 in most popular superhero.
I always thought that, and I must have misled Sarah, but I always thought that was Spider-Man must have at least been Stan Lee's favorite superhero. I thought it was his first. I thought that was the first superhero that he wrote for Marvel. But I think
not the first, but definitely. I don't know if it was his favorite, but I know it was a big shift and kind of a risky move. where like no one at Marvel wanted a teenage superhero. They're like, why do we want this kid like as a superhero? Like, no, we want, Reed Richards and the Hulk and, Tony Stark. But I know Stan Lee specifically wanted a superhero that people could relate to, that had everyday problems. Like, he's just a kid at school. He has school problems. He, doesn't have money. He's not rich like Tony Stark. So they have to, pay bills. He has to go to class. He gets bullied. He has everyday issues, and that is what made him so relatable. And that's what I know Stan Lee liked about him so much.
And apparently that's probably what the world likes about him.
Right. He's relatable.
Yeah, he's an awesome superhero. Excited to get into it.
Yeah, well, get into it we shall. Spider-Man was released again, as I said, May 3rd, 2002, written by David Koepp, directed by Sam Raimi, stars Tobey Maguire, Willem Dafoe, Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, Cliff Robertson, Rosemary Harris, and J.K. Simmons. I don't think I need to tell this to anyone, but it's about outcast teen genius Peter Parker, who develops spider-like superhuman abilities after being bitten by a genetically altered spider and decides to use his newfound powers to fight crime as Spider-Man. He's a menace.
That's good.
So, is he a menace or not? Is this movie a menace? Does it stand the test of time? Nearly 2 decades later, what do you guys think?
Okay, I'll kick it off real quick.
Don't forget organic webs.
Okay, so it's one of the, or we'll start with organic webs.
All right,
the organic webs don't really, it never really phased me when I watched it. It's like, okay, Spider-Man's got, he shoots webs like a spider.
Mm-hmm.
But then, in talking about organic web shooters and looking how far they shoot from his wrists and like just the strength of the web that comes out and everything else, it's bizarre how much pressure has to be held in his wrist to shoot the webs as far and hard as it goes. It's really quite incredible. I don't what spurred them to go into a different direction, because I mean, he's supposed to be a genius, so naturally it seems like he would invent his own web shooters, right? But they didn't choose to go in that direction. If anything, with the you don't quite get into the, at least I don't think you don't quite scratch the surface of his intellectual abilities until probably until Spider-Man 2.
Second one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seems like a weird direction not to address the fact that, yeah, he's like super fucking smart and he just came up with these web shooters. So is there a reason why they chose to go in a different direction?
I'm sure there is probably something that it may have just been as simple as James Cameron thought it was a great idea, along with the whole sex on the Brooklyn Bridge thing, and
it
they just
James
kept it.
Cameron's original idea to.
Well, yeah, I know that it was included in his thing that he did, but I don't know if when they're making this film, if they're just taking that idea from it, or what. Oh, here we go. I was stalling for time. I found the line in the Wikipedia article. Wikipedia knows all. So basically, they did take it from the James Cameron treatment. It sounds like they did multiple rewrites on this film, and I guess apparently they adapted James Cameron's treatment to be the first version of the screenplay. Went through a bunch of rewrites, but they kept the entire time this idea of the organic web shooters. And so Sam Raimi, who directed this film, said that he felt it would stretch the audience's suspension of disbelief too far to have Peter invent the mechanical web shooters.
So it's a little bit of a discredit to Peter.
Right, I agree. Kind of takes away from his intellect,
Yeah, and I think that there's a reason in the subsequent 2 iterations of Spider-Man that we've seen, they've done a different approach with giving him the actual mechanical web shooters. So I think for the sake of simplicity, it's one thing to just have it. It's just like, well, he's got a bunch of spider-like powers. Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Have shoot webs out of his wrists, and there's all these drawings of the, well, anatomically, is that exactly where they would come out? And the answer is, well, maybe probably not, but how many people get bitten by spiders and develop spider powers?
Don't
so, it's fiction. It's fine, like who gives a shit? But I think, certainly from a purist standpoint, I think that it does kind of diminish his intellect to some extent, or at least it doesn't. It's an easy way to illustrate his intellect, and I think that I think the Amazing Spider-Man movie actually, I think, probably does a better job of like really making that a focal point of look at the cool tech shit that he's inventing, and in Homecoming, I think you see him like making web fluid while he's in class, in like a little drawer in like a lab. So the other ones have kind of in other ways illustrated, hey, this guy's like really smart. That the Raimi films do their fair share of that. Just not in this particular way. So I don't mind it. I like web shooters. I'm a classicist, I guess, in that particular way. I just think it's just a cool way to do it. It makes more sense when he runs out of web fluid as opposed to when his shooty wrists just stop working, coincidentally or conveniently, like you kind of have to really bake that into the script, so that's my 2 cents on it anyway. I don't, if anyone wants to offer some other thoughts, but that's what I have on the web shooter controversy, if you want to call it that.
I will say that Sam Raimi directing these movies is like a hallmark of nostalgia for me.
Sure.
Coming off of like, Army of Darkness and Evil Dead and that sort of thing. The way that he chooses to capture villains and like the action and stuff, and there's some really good callbacks to Evil Dead and whatnot in the second one. But even in this one, you can feel
the sensibilities are there.
Yeah, the sensibilities are there, and I think it makes for I think my number one thing about this movie is how. And it's a big departure from like our modern comic book movies. These 3 movies, well, I'm going to say at least the first 2, feel like they're pulled straight from a fucking comic book. Like they're so campy, they're so over the top, and it, not to its detriment. Like I feel like it elevates it and almost creates a different genre of film because they're just so comic booky. I don't know how you can. I feel like you could pull it out. You could capture a frame. You could have Alex Ross draw it up, and you could put it on a fucking comic book.
As they literally chose to do so in the opening credits for the next film.
Right. You could pull it out and have Alex Ross draw it and throw it in a comic book and just make a storyboard of Alex Ross drawings and fucking make a comic book of it. Everything from the dialogue to the way that the cinematographer captures the action on screen. I feel like it's straight pulled from a comic book. And I feel I want to say that that these first 2 movies are the only real comic book movies that really do that. I feel like once we hit a certain era in comic book movies, they become less comic booky and more film like. I mean, just there's more modern sensibilities to how they choose to create the film, and they sort of organically change into a taking what's written on the page and making it a kind of a more conventional movie. Whereas there was a lot of creative liberties taken in these in this movie in particular. That hasn't been done before. And I don't think we've seen it really since. So I think that when this movie hit theaters, this is one of the few movies that I saw in theaters with my mom and my stepdad in theaters, and it blew me away. I mean, it's huge. I mean, it's such a huge deal. Because it catapulted comic book movies up until this point. I mean, I guess you had X-Men where you had the guy turn into water or whatever when he walked off the beach and shit. It's kind of weird and goofy. You had the toad with the long tongue. And it was just kind of like, but this was a really compelling movie. It just catapulted comic book movies as a whole into the forefront of modern film. and it was awesome. It was totally cool.
And you also figure that you're 10 years old when this comes out, probably.
Yeah, but even
so, it's just go ahead.
Even like exactly. You watch it when you're 10 years old, and it just blows you away. You never seen anything like it before. But even watch out, like I haven't seen it in probably close to a decade. I haven't seen it in forever. And it was wildly entertaining to watch. I had a really good time with it. Now, granted, my the things that I found entertaining were probably different than what I found entertaining before. But it was still, you could still appreciate it. You're appreciating it differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think that's what I was getting at, was when you're 10 years old, it's like mind blowing because you haven't seen anything like it. When you're, close to 30 years old, it's charming in different ways. You got some nostalgia goggles on for a few things here and there, but it still has its charm, without a doubt. I would say so. So anyway, Henrique, what do you think about this first Spider-Man film from Sam Raimi?
I think in many ways it holds up. In other ways, especially with technology, CGI, you look at it.
Yeah, of course.
The swinging just doesn't look the same as it does now. But I think you take that away and you focus on the story, which I think this movie does pretty well. This is a great intro story. Like, this is the quintessential intro story that probably most people who think of Spider-Man think of this movie. It has the whole, like, getting bit by the spider, getting the powers. It has Uncle Ben's death, which, is central to his character.
Oh, and Uncle Ben, not to cut you off, but this Uncle Ben is incredible. Yeah,
no, I agree. I think that speech is one of the, like, most memorable, iconic things in comic book history. It's slightly different, actually, from the comics. It's like very slightly. I think in this one, he says, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think in the comics, it's like, with great power, there must come great responsibility. So it's like, telling you, it has changes the meaning just slightly, but I think it was delivered really well, and it's very poignant, and it's kind of, responsibility is probably the theme of this movie, and it drives Peter, and like you see his evolution from
of the trilogy in a way too.
That's true. Like all three films.
The whole of the Tobey Spider-Man Peter Parker character is driven from this moment in his life.
And such a great fucking message, right?
It's a great, I think I've mentioned it before that, like, I thought about getting it tattattooed on me somewhere.
It's true. If you have the power
to so many things.
Oh, man. If everybody has the ability to change something around
everyone
them.
has power. It doesn't say, like, with great superpowers or with spider swinging power. It just says great power. And everyone has power in some sense. And that gives you a responsibility. And I feel like that's a life philosophy. If
everybody did that, the world would be such a far better fucking place. I mean, it's it just brings a little tear to my eye. I feel like I'm going to cry a little bit for fucking Spider-Man. So good.
Yeah. No, like, and I think that's the, like, nostalgic parts that hold up. And, just seeing the suit, I think it might be my favorite suit. Just the raised webbing, it's iconic, and it just has this look. I don't know, like, I like a lot of the different suits, but it's definitely one of my favorites. It just looks great. I think the cast, some are probably better than others in the long term. I think Tobey Maguire is all right. He's not my favorite Spider-Man.
He's fucking old.
He's old. He's way too old.
Can we talk about this?
Okay.
Can we talk about this? It's just fully all 30-year-old men at that high school. Yeah. It's Steve Buscemi, How Do You Do, Fellow Kids, for the entire fucking movie. All
I could think about the whole movie was that musical that came out, Dear Eric Hansen or Mr. Hansen.
Oh God! Yeah,
At least I appreciate the fact that they didn't have the CG available to try to de-age anybody, so they just made it 30 years old.
Everyone was consistently 30 years old, so they all looked the same age. They were all just 10 years too old, except for apparently Kirsten Dunst, who I think was 18, 19 when they filmed it. So. Go figure. But yeah, I mean, just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just on that particular aspect I find that comical, and I feel like that was pretty typical of movies of the era. I feel like that's something that the Tom Holland trilogy now has looked at and be like, let's cast kids, or at least people young enough to look like kids,
especially if they're going to be in high school. Like if you set this in like a Peter Parker who's like 26, whatever, like sure, but he's straight up in high school. But I think the most iconic casting is by far J.K. Simmons. Like this is god tier.
I think there's a few contenders.
But
yes.
but
I think there's a few contenders.
gold.
But I'll hear your argument.
I think of
Please proceed.
not like number one, but easily like in the gold tier, god tier of comic book character casting. Like when I picture J.K. Simmons, I can't picture anyone else anymore. And like I'm sure other people could do a great job, but he's just so good. The look from the mustache to holding the cigar and just like the mannerisms are so perfect. Like he really captures J. Jonah Jameson. And like even I feel like the video games and other things like just try to emulate a lot of that energy because he does it so well.
Yeah,
I agree with you. Yeah, there's no
turned out and Far From Home. They just brought him back. They just brought him back.
I'm
They're
not
just
even
like,
mad. I'm not
why,
even
why,
mad.
why would you do anything else? And the Amazing Spider-Man films just dodged it entirely.
The only other person that could slightly capture the energy is Alex Jones. I feel like Alex Jones would be a stupendous fucking cast.
Yeah, but then you'd have
It's
to
a
pay
little
him
too
money
close
and
to real
actually
life.
have him be involved in it.
Right.
Spider-Man!
You have to act, you know. You're supposed to like not be yourself in movies.
Yeah, exactly. They don't actually want that. They just want that energy, you know. So
Exactly.
well, I would offer two other
Ooh, okay.
perfect castings in my eyes. I one's a joke response and one's a serious response. Which ones do you want first?
That's the joke response.
Well, obviously, Macho Man Randy Savage.
Oh, that's
That's you know,
pretty good.
You're going nowhere. What are you doing up there?
That's pretty great.
I got you for 3 minutes.
They couldn't.
R.I.P.
Obviously,
to Macho
they couldn't
Man.
do that again if they tried. But
No.
Macho
good.
Man
That's pretty good.
Randy
Okay.
Savage was fucking excellent.
Right. It's
in
like
the like NWC fucking or WWE wrestler women that were talking shit the whole time he's walking up to the stage or walking up to the ring.
Bonesaw's ready.
Boots. Come on. Got to give it up for the Macho
Okay,
Man.
yeah, that's
That's
good.
great.
That's good.
I didn't sign up for a cage match. He's all freaking out. It's great.
My serious response is Willem Dafoe.
William
as Norman Osborn.
Dafoe. I was waiting for you to drop it. Yes.
He's a bit of a scientist himself.
I'm something of a scientist myself. He's amazing. He's got the perfect face to play a character named Green Goblin. Why they chose to hide it behind a silly looking mask most of the movie, hey, you know,
Power Ranger
that's
uniform?
perhaps a relic of its time. Honestly, it's actually the suit in retrospect that bothers me more than the mask itself. Although if you guys may have seen this, there were costume tests where they had a more comic book accurate goblin like facial features thing, like animatronic mask, which looks significantly better, and they decided not to use it in lieu of a Power Rangers suit and mask. But what are you going to do? Willem Dafoe, when he is Willem Dafoeing about, is just spectacular. Yeah. The Thanksgiving scene in particular, he's just chewing so much scenery. He's having a hell of a time. I'm having a hell of a time. He's awesome there. He relishes his screen time with glee, and you know, Green Goblin is like he's probably number one Spider-Man villain, like in terms of like arch enemy.
He's probably the Joker.
You probably think Green Goblin
to Peter Parker.
He's that equivalent, you know. And so, you know, you're going to that obviously with this first Spider-Man. You're kind of going for broke in that particular way. But I think it's a pretty good adaptation of the character. The scenes where he's like just going ham in the fucking mirror with himself, opposite himself, I guess.
Where he's in front
just
of the
great.
fireplace.
Yeah.
What do I do?
You know? Oh man.
And perhaps maybe those are the more comic booky scenes, I think, that make this film have that sort of campy tone that it very happily embraces, and I think thrives by.
Yeah.
Back
but
formula.
yeah. Out am I?
Oh, the
laugh-
best one though is where he
laugh's pretty
comes
good.
in on the balloons, and Spider-Man
Yeah,
fucks
yeah.
the glider up. He's like, "We'll meet again, Spider-Man." He's flying away. It's like, oh man,
Yeah,
it's gold.
Yeah. I think he's.
that's fair.
I think he's excellent. I don't think it's the best. Like, it's not the best villain that this trilogy sees. But Willem Dafoe is
great.
just he's fantastic. So he's someone we will see in No Way Home, and I think that
That's exciting.
that's one character where it's just like, okay, yeah,
That's cool. That's cool.
You're gonna give me more Willem Dafoe in another Spider-Man movie. I'm not gonna say no to that. It's kind of how I feel about that, especially going back and rewatching him here, 20 years later almost. Yeah, sign me up. Is kind of how I feel about that. So,
Speaking of that Thanksgiving scene, I try to argue with someone that this is the best Thanksgiving movie because there's not many Thanksgiving movies. So that's, my argument is just it's by the numbers.
William Dafoe's a pretty incredible actor, though.
Oh yeah, in The Lighthouse.
Yeah, I mean,
Amazing.
I
can't understand half the shit he says, but it's amazing.
It's good.
how long have we been stranded on this rock? I don't know if that's the exact line, but you guys
he's
get
good.
it. You get it.
It's such a cool movie. I like that movie.
Yeah.
a lot.
So what else happens in this movie? We got some.
got
Uncle
the-
Ben
it's got
passes
MTV.
away.
Oh,
And go for it. What do
sorry.
you have?
I had a lighter moment. I said MTV
MTV's
Awards
Movie
Best
Kiss Award.
Movie Kiss Award. Yeah,
Oh, that's a classic. That's a classic
It is a
moment.
classic.
The upside down kiss.
yeah,
Of course.
it's like iconic.
Between Spider-Man and Mary Jane, we haven't really talked about Mary Jane.
Right.
Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane. You guys you like Mary Jane? Like Kirsten Dunst?
I think she's okay in this one. There's times where I wouldn't even say to her fault. They don't write her character in the best ways. I think she's okay in this. It's not like
Yeah.
so over the top.
Yeah,
not my
I think
favorite.
she's good. I think honestly, and this is symptomatic of the entire Raimi trilogy. Peter Parker, Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker is just the cringiest dude of all
it's
time.
rough.
It's mostly funny. It's mostly a source of humor, although I would argue probably sometimes unintentionally.
Like he just like stares wide eyed and doesn't fucking say anything all the time.
Like he catches the shit in the cafeteria and she like says something and he just like just like stares at her for like 10 seconds, doe eyes. It's just, it's funny. It's funny, but it's just like, oh man, this is painful to watch in many ways.
And
But-
he's so
but,
animated in his like his eyes and his eyebrows and stuff. Like he's got these like little micro expressions and shit, and it just makes him look like a complete doof all the time.
he is the biggest fucking goober. He's the biggest goober of all the Peter Parkers, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Toby, he's just a doofus, pretty much consistently the whole way through the trilogy. He's better at times, and then there's Spider-Man 3 where we'll get there obviously,
Yeah, we'll get
but that's the maximum doofusness, gooberness. But he's pretty rough in this one, and in a few different scenes. But yeah,
Can we talk about the score or the music?
of course. Where would we be without talking about Danny Elfman's contributions to Spider-Man as a character? I would argue more than just this film. Like,
Yeah, right.
this is a timeless, theme, the character theme. I think the score is great throughout, but the theme particularly is something that I think will always be synonymous with Spider-Man as a character, in the same way that for me, like the animated show, I guess both I guess they're all old, but I think there's a 60s animated show, if I'm not mistaken, and then there's the 90s one. Those are like iconic to me, but this is like everyone saw this fucking movie, and whether they saw it when it came out or they saw it in the 20 years since, everyone has seen this movie, and that theme is embedded into their brains. Like that's the Spider-Man theme. So yes,
It's so good. It's iconic, but it just plays so well for the character in the movie, and it's just it's great. And like I think the way they reuse it and change it up in the future installments too, I think is really great. So it's one of the most iconic themes I can think of, like rivaling Superman theme, rivaling Star Wars. Like it's fantastic.
I agree, man. There's no disputing the Mr. Elfman. He's a very talented individual.
Yeah. I mean, just a huge critical part of. I think for me, definitely the nostalgia is just like hearing that kick in, even just like the opening credits, and and just the little cues in the soundtrack. Like it just you get some goosebumps when you just you hear the theme like really kick in full force. It's great stuff. Where do we have any other thoughts on this first Spider-Man? I feel like I'm kind of
the computer screens where he gets bitten by the spider. We're getting. I'm going to get off in the weeds, but I did have one fleeting thought.
Okay.
When they're the school's touring the Oscorp thing, and he gets bit by the spider, the things that they put on the computer screens just immediately reminded me of like Universal Studios, just like super
Spider-Man
simplistic.
ride?
Yeah,
like like
the more like the Hulk. Like you got like the genome thing, you know what I mean? And it's all right.
It's just random.
Next
It's
slide,
random
and it's like
sciencey
spider.
shit,
Yeah, it just we've come a long way, and just like I said, it's very comic booky,
very campy. Yeah,
it's very campy. So, anyways, it just little things like that made me laugh a lot in this movie. But it was very enjoyable, iconic. A lot of nostalgia. I think it did it plays a very important role for the things we appreciate now. It was a huge stepping stone. I think this movie is, I think it's wonderful. I think it's great, but it serves a huge purpose in modern film. I think it's a very important movie that was made. And that's my stand on this movie. It was a very important movie that had a lot of character, and it just put in the forefront a lot of concepts and a lot of ideas that have been expanded on a whole lot. It's a very important movie. So without this movie, you don't have Endgame. I you know what I mean?
No, I think you can probably track a line. I mean, it's at the time it came out, it was one of the most successful movies ever. First film to ever make $100 million in its opening weekend. Obviously, we shattered the ceiling on the box office multiple times since then, but it's still made over $800 million worldwide. I'm looking at it now, which just for a film that came out again nearly 2 decades ago is pretty incredible. I think it basically it changed the game. I think particularly for superhero films, because you talked about the first X-Men film had come out. It had, I guess, Blade, which is like a rated R kind of smaller thing, in the late 90s. But other than that, like, you really hadn't had a whole lot probably since Superman. The Superman movies that came out, which came and went, I think, quality.
The 90s.
Severely dived.
The
and
90s Batman stuff.
True. The Burton Batmans. And then, by the time Batman and Robin comes out, the comic book genre is probably left for dead.
It's just tanked, right? Yeah, I mean.
Right.
This catapulted it in a huge way.
Yeah, it makes it legit. And I think, there's an argument to be made that its sequel is really what catapults, the genre for being just, hey, it's a fun little pointless diversion, to, oh wait, these can be actually incredible films in their own right too. But this I think I agree with you. This is what does it. This is what gets you there, because Spider-Man 2 doesn't exist without Spider-Man. Yeah. This film needs to exist in its incarnation, be as successful as it is because of how good it is. And it's not a perfect film. Maybe I haven't really said my overall thoughts, but like, it's a little corny, the goblin stuff is a little goofy, like there's some stuff in it that doesn't hold up and whatnot, but it's got its own charm, as I said, and overall, like, you can see why it did so well. You can see why it was as successful as it was, because it was just a true and honest, authentic take on a comic book hero like Spider-Man, who everyday people can resonate with. I think that's what's different, and that's what I think Stan Lee was trying to do when he made the character is he wanted an everyman, that people could relate to, that kids could relate to, because hey, that's me. So yeah. I think it's a very valid point to really.
I also had these
tie this to the films that we have now.
Did you guys have these Spider-Man pajamas where they had the webbing in the armpits?
No,
So
that sounds
I
awesome.
don't think I had those.
You
That
didn't have
sounds
those?
pretty
Sounds
badass.
fucking
Yeah,
awesome.
some web pits.
I'll have some of those now.
Some badass shit.
I'm all about the web pits.
I had some web pit fucking Spider-Man pajamas, and they were balling and wear them all the time.
That's fucking cool.
And
pretty
I was
fucking
telling Sarah about this, and she said her brother had the same fucking pair of pajamas.
That's fucking cool.
Nice.
Anyways.
Very nice. All right, you guys have any other thoughts on Spider-Man? First one.
Nah.
Spider-Man the first. All right, why don't we move on to Spider-Man the second? Spider-Man 2, released June 30th, 2004, written by Alvin Sargent, directed again by Sam Raimi. Mostly returning cast: Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, newcomer Alfred Molina, Rosemary Harris, Donna Murphy, and J.K. Simmons. In this one, Peter Parker is beset with troubles in his failing personal life as he battles a brilliant scientist named Dr. Otto Octavius, a.k.a. Doctor Strange. Wait, no, that's taken. Dr. Octopus.
There you go.
This is an all-time classic, I think, in terms of the superhero genre. And again, I think even beyond that, of just being a great film in its own right. And I think it holds up. Hot take. I think it holds up. I think it stands the test of time personally. It's just interestingly enough, so in terms of viewing experience, I watched Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 in the same night. Spider-Man, I paused it a few times and went back to it, and Spider-Man 2 put it on, and before I knew it,
You were glued.
like the movie was over.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it sucks you in. It's just a very, very well-paced film. It's, I think, got, and maybe this is jumping ahead to covering all 5 of these films, I think it's got the best villain in all 5 of these Spider-Man films.
Yeah,
I know.
I can get
I
behind
know
you on that.
Topher Grace's Venom is obviously a close second for many, but Alfred Molina is he's brilliant here, and I think it's probably the best material of any of these films. I think it's the best material that any of these films get. You know what I mean? So yeah. Would you guys agree with that? Spider-Man 2, is it a classic for you guys as well?
Yeah.
I think so. Like, I hadn't rewatched this film in a while, and I don't know how many years, but I was a little afraid to go back because I think the first one, I like watched it with nostalgia glasses, but I could also take them off. This one, I watched it, and throughout the movie, I'm just like getting slightly emotional. It's just like hitting all the right beats, and I mentioned it before, but like Spider-Man's also my favorite superhero, and I think it's because of the everyday relatability, with great power comes great responsibility, like that philosophy. And I think this movie like understands who Spider-Man is and who Peter Parker is, even if it's not like exactly how it is in the comics or exactly how you would want it. It's just, it definitely understands like the essence of Spider-Man. And I think the kind of going into the plot, like the Spider-Man No More aspect of it is done so well, because it shows you what happens when there is no Spider-Man and like why he's needed and why he has to come back, both for Peter Parker, but for the city. And, as good as the Uncle Ben scene is in the first one, I almost think that the Aunt May scene in this is more iconic.
Oh, man, just fucking breaks your heart.
It started bringing tears to my eye. Just like the exchange they have.
I wept.
It's so good. It's just like, it doesn't have the same like iconic phrases to it, but just the way they deliver it and the timing that it comes in the movie, it brings you in and you understand like why Spider-Man needs to come back. And it's not a question, and Peter doesn't question it anymore because he knows like he has to put on the suit again, even if it means giving up other things that he wants. And that's just so powerful. Like, guys, the whole movie is great. I think it's a great film, but like that scene kind of exemplifies like why, one of the main reasons why it holds up.
Talking about hope.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Cause it just like the other movies, like later on, they talk about it, like Spider-Man gives people hope. And it's like, yes, but like this movie showed it. This movie like gave you the example. You understand it, you know?
Yeah, no, I 110% agree. It's one thing to know that you're capable of doing something and you have a responsibility to do it. Okay, you know what I mean? But what about me? You know what I mean? I understand that I should be doing something, but this movie really puts everything into perspective. You know what I mean? And especially for Spider-Man, and it continues the I guess the philosophy, if you will, in a major way. I think the villain's super compelling. You can just see him. It's cool because the villain has his own arc, and he has his own arc. You know what I mean? You can see where he's at. You can see what his goals are and his ambitions, and then you can see him fall, and then you can see him rise again. Which is, he's got a complete arc of his own, which is I feel like you never get that in a Marvel movie, or a lot of movies you hardly ever get that. I mean, it's just a very compelling.
It's a smart move to like use the first movie to build up Peter, and then use this one to build up a really compelling villain.
Yeah, but I also think that this film does a really good job of balancing both of them. Like, the first act obviously sets certain things into motion, setting up why Peter basically gives up on being Spider-Man. And then it also sets up, Otto's tragic fall from brilliant genius scientist to tragic figure who's now being controlled, having his mind controlled. But from that point on, the movie kind of runs them on parallel tracks where you're getting just as much character development for Peter as you are for Otto. Obviously, there's some action beats kind of interspersed in there, but it's Otto dealing with his the mind control, trying to recapture this glory by rebuilding the machine, and that ties him into Harry's storyline, which we really haven't even talked about at all, is Harry Osborn. We'll get into that too. And then meanwhile, Peter's raindrops keep falling on my head. He's having the time of his life,
as
being Spider-Man no more.
Around him crumbles.
As the world crumbles, and of course that's the stage for Spider-Man to come back in glorious fashion and have a big face off with Otto. There's so many iconic things in this film. The train sequence,
those face-offs
is a big one.
Really iconic.
We can meme it to death. The Tobey face, as he's stopping. But that's a fucking iconic.
But it's so good. But it's good.
That's great. It's an awesome scene. Just even the preceding fight atop the train is just cool. It's high. It's intense. It's visceral, and it leads to this great heroic scene. We got the heroic scene with the bridge in Spider-Man 1 where he saves the cable car and saves MJ. But this is just like next really level heroism.
It's really cool that you bring that up, because in that sequence, he was in the sequence in the first movie, he was given the choice to choose MJ or the the people of the city or whatever. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And he was able to get away with both. And now you get to see him have to choose, and he chooses MJ, and just, as a result of her finding somebody else, and he, you know what I mean? He's trying to, I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. It's, I don't know. It's a very, very, very good expansion on what the first movie did. It explored all the themes and the ideas that the first one set into motion, and it sees him it shows him make the other choice, which is self-indulgent and just I want to make these choices for myself. This is what I want to do,
right? And which I think is a reasonable question to ask. Like, should you give up everything that you want to be Spider-Man for other people, for a city that in this movie doesn't always love you, for Daily Bugle that calls you a menace? In the same time, you can't keep a job, you can't make it to your girlfriend or best friends play. You can't be there for your best friends. You can't be there for your family. Like, that's tough. And like, you couldn't balance both of them, and he had to choose. And like, the choice had repercussions. And I think that's great.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's the same things we always, I mean, like you say, the same things that draw everybody to Spider-Man is an everyday guy. And that's the everyday guy.
Right.
What do we leave on the table when we choose to make a decision?
Right.
And it's,
for Spider-Man, it's do I spend my time superheroing about? For everyone else, it's like, well, which video game do I play? Do I have enough time to play this video game? Oh shit, I got to go to work. Fuck, this sucks. So the same struggles. I think overall, there's definitely some similarities there.
Yeah, but I mean,
and such. But and
it goes so much further than that, though. Rather than playing the video game, you can go out and fucking make a difference. You can go do something. You know what I mean? You can go help somebody.
Do that.
Right. But it's at a cost of like your personal time, your family time, your whatever you enjoy.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And how much do you? What do you? I mean, yeah, man.
Yeah, no.
It really draws it into focus, though, doesn't it? I mean, it really does. That whole the philosophy and of itself,
right,
is the through line. For these first two movies.
Yeah, I think that's what these two get right, and like what they really understand about Spider-Man and why he's my like favorite superhero. And it's both the everyday thing, but then the extraordinary things he does, and being a scientist while also being a superhero and that kind of thing. And like, that was a big inspiration for me, like throughout, like wanting to do science and like be at a big institution like the NIH. So like the first time I was there, I was like, I'm Peter Parker just walking through these halls, just like watching amazing scientists do experiments. So like, it's so cool to have a character like that, and then to also have those same struggles too.
Yeah, no, I mean, for you in particular, I mean, you're saving people, dude. And it does come at a sacrifice. I mean, you are fucking Spider-Man. You're fucking like I am the Black Panther. You are fucking Spider-Man. It's
where does that leave me?
You're fucking Daredevil, except you're not blind. You have
you could be a cat.
Daredevil has ways to see as well. So
I was gonna say you could either go either way. Of like you're the lawyer who looks out for the little guy, or you're the seasoned veteran who also looks out for the little guy. But
yeah, no, it's super compelling though. Everybody can find themselves in Spider-Man, and that's the greater picture here.
Yeah, well, I think one of the bigger struggles that we see Peter go through, especially in 2 and 3, one we can all relate to: rent.
Fucking Rent.
What a great character.
That guy. I think it was. Yeah, we'll get into the third one, but he pretty much tells the fucking landlord, "Fuck off, fix the goddamn door."
Yeah. Get your rent when you fix this goddamn door.
All right, I'm dying to get into the third one, so we should close up this one.
All right, I have a few scattered thoughts. I'll throw them out there. Folks may hear Obi struggling because he really wants to talk about Spider-Man 3 as well. Yes, that's a good spot. Doc Ock's hospital scene.
Oh man,
that's the purest form of Sam Raimi.
Straight up horror
Evil Dead
movie
Sam
in a
Raimi
Marvel
that
movie.
you get.
Right,
it's awesome. I fucking love that scene. I think it's brilliant. I think it's awesome stuff.
And Doc Ock is a incredibly terrifying fucking figure, right? Like he has these metal arms that are completely impervious to like the sun. They're impervious to fucking everything.
Yeah.
What a man! It's terrifying.
Yeah, and it's cool.
And
I was gonna say real quickly, it's cool how they did the arms, and a lot of them are puppets. Like you have 4 people literally controlling the arms. Obviously, it's a CGI here and there, but back then it's not the same technology. So I think the reason it looks so good is because the people who worked on it just took a lot of care when doing the puppeteering on the arms, and it looks so cool. Like I'm thinking of the scene where like he, after that whole episode, like the arms take off his blindfold, and it's just so cool. But the way the arms,
it's all practical effects, dude. It's so fucking good.
Really well done.
It's awesome. The cafe scene where you these films do a great job with the spider sense. They do an excellent job with it, like conveying it like visually, and the score and everything just makes it feel like you know what's happening. That scene is iconic of just the way he's like navigating around. Same thing with the train scene. Just the way that he navigates with his arms, climbing up the fucking building with Aunt May after the bank sequence is just like they just got Dr. Octopus so fucking right in this film. And I think he's genuinely terrifying, especially when he's not in control of his own mind, and we see that struggle.
Right.
And even at the end, when he's fighting and struggling to take back basically his body, like it's really powerful stuff. His sacrifice ultimately at the end, you feel bad for him. He's done some shitty things and obviously put a lot of people in mortal peril, but he's a sympathetic villain. And
Right.
and we've seen plenty of sympathetic villains obviously in the years since this film came out, but he's one that just legitimately feels like an earnest good person, corrupted, and not even not of his own volition, just of his own ambition, gone sideways basically, as compared to say Harry, who kind of goes bad of his own accord. He's led down this bitter path, seeing Spider-Man with the body of Norman, his father, and he's just he's consumed by vengeance and his vendetta against Spider-Man. Then he has to find out who he is, and well, it's his best friend. That sucks. That complicates things quite a bit. I think the first film sets up Harry as a good best friend. Rich, aloof, kind of out there best friend. Kind of shitty that he started dating MJ when Peter was obviously in love with her and had told him multiple times. That's definitely not a bro move. That's probably the sort of thing that could break up friendships. It's a little dickish, I would say. I think overall Peter would have been in the right to be like, actually, you're a terrible friend. Fuck you. But they have some conflict otherwise, and and that's just one source of it. But I think Harry is done well in terms of his arc and having his interactions with Norman, and kind of slowly getting corrupted into being Little Goblin Jr. I like Harry in this movie. I think he's a good kind of secondary foil. He's sort of a villain, but not really, you know what I mean? But I think that, especially the way this movie kind of leaves it, was very promising. Very promising way for that character to go.
Yeah.
As adopting the green, finding all of the Green Goblin equipment, the pumpkin bombs and the mask and everything kind of concealed in the mansion. We'll have to see if they lived up to the promise of what they set up in Spider-Man 3. We'll have to talk about it. But in terms of other things, that might be it. I think that might be it for me.
So the last thing I can think of is probably one of my only criticisms of this film, and it kind of spans the whole Raimi trilogy, is I just don't think they write Mary Jane very well. It's not
the back
awful,
and forth,
but it's just I think they don't know what to do with her fully. They just have her date every character on the screen.
It's they didn't want to put them together,
right? And
have them be happy.
I get that.
They needed drama. They needed perpetual drama, and this happened in Amazing Spider-Man as well.
It's a CWism, drama, if you will.
It's a for sure CWism, and it's rampant throughout this trilogy, particularly of I don't love you. Do you love me? I do. Right. No, I don't. I don't love you. I do, though. At the same time, though, I do, though.
Right.
Make sure you call off your wedding, but also I don't love you. We can't be together anymore. And
it's rough.
It gets tiresome.
Right.
It gets tiresome without a doubt.
I don't even want to put any of the blame on Kirsten Dunst. I think she's not given the material to work with.
Sure.
I don't know. They could have done a lot better. I think they make her very secondary to all the other characters.
Yeah, Kirsten Dunst running through whatever the fuck she was running through in the wedding dress. I'm going to see Peter. Comic book part. Comic booky. It's comic. It's still comic booky.
Very, very comic booky. Yep. But
we can talk about Spider-Man 3 if you guys want.
Well, we can talk about Spider-Man 3. However, I need another alcoholic beverage in order to do so, because let me tell you, boys, it's all downhill from here. All right, I have a beer in hand. Let's talk some Spider-Man 3.
All right.
Released May 4th, 2007. Written by Sam Raimi, Ivan Raimi, and Alvin Sargent. Directed by Sam Raimi. Who do we got in this movie? We've got Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, Thomas Hayden Church, Topher Grace, Bryce Dallas Howard, James Cromwell, Rosemary Harris, and J.K. Simmons. In Spider-Man 3, a strange black entity from another world bonds with Peter Parker and causes inner turmoil as he contends with new villains, temptations, and revenge. Well,
Okay.
you know, this is undoubtedly a movie, is it not?
Oh yeah.
It's a movie. Yeah. I won't disagree with you there.
Can we start with the CG? Does the CG look like shit?
I mean, it didn't look great in the other movies, to be fair.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know that it's significantly worse than it was in
not
any of the
good.
prior two. Obviously, given the fact that those two are older films, those have more of an excuse than the more recent film. You know that.
I feel like they tried
was
to
there
do
something in particular that like
Man. Fucking Sandman
stuck out
looked
to you?
like the Sandman looked just god damn it, the fucking Sandman.
I didn't mind most of the Sandman.
See,
CG.
I minded Sandman. I thought
It's not How to Train Your Dragon quality sand
it's
as
not that
we
kind of sand.
have seen in obviously more recent years, but
You know,
I think well, please just go ahead. I don't want to cut you off. I feel like you're ready to go.
all right, so CG, we could talk about the Sandman. The Sandman did look like hot garbage. Like maybe they just tried to bite on too much and the technology wasn't there. I get it. It's fine, right? And then we can talk about Venom. We can talk about the Venom too, you know?
Yeah.
There was and we can talk about the web slinging. Like, I feel like 1 and 2 had enough, I don't want to say ambition, but they had enough sensibilities to enough to know of where to interject. Let's do not physical. What's my word? I'm getting less wordy as I drink.
Practical?
Yeah. Let's use more
CGI.
practical effects and less CGI,
Okay.
right? And let's only use the CGI in like the far scoped scenes where he's swinging between here and there or whatever, right? Let's minimize the use of CGI because it just doesn't add to the film. Here, they were all up in that shit. They were right there, real close. And it didn't age well. I'm
Didn't
not gonna
work,
say it didn't
yeah.
look well, but it didn't age well at the very least. There's a whole lot wrong with this movie. I don't know if just handing me the floor is a good place to start. I feel like
Is there
maybe
anything-
if somebody wants to.
Is there anything that you liked in this film?
That's probably the good place to start. Is what did you like about?
What
this
did
film?
I like about this film?
Yeah. Mhm.
if anything?
Right.
Yeah, no, I appreciated certain things about this movie. I appreciated the scene with the landlord and fucking. I appreciated Peter Parker's backbone in this movie. He found his backbone, and he fucking swung with his backbone like he was all backbone in this movie. You
What's
know,
the matter?
like he.
I'm gonna put
cry?
some dirt in your eye.
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
How did they write this?
You're trash, Brock.
The script
You know,
for this film.
he went from like one extreme to the other. And it constantly feels like, to me anyways, it feels like I don't know if you guys have these days at work, but like you deal with so many people and stuff, and there's so many stupid responses. There's so many just like asinine assholes you have to deal with on a daily basis. Like you just wish that one day you could just be an absolute dick and there would be no repercussions. Like you could
That's
just be an
fair. It's almost like
absolute
a
asshole.
fantasy. Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it's like Peter just had enough and fuck it. I'm just saying whatever I want to everybody. And it was actually kind of gratifying. Like I lived vicariously through Peter in this movie. It's like, oh God, that just would feel so nice just to tell everybody to fuck off all the time. And yeah, that was pretty cool. I actually thoroughly enjoyed that portion of the movie because I'd like to pretty much repeat all of Peter's words all the time to everybody most of the time. So that was pretty cool. It's like the deepest, and once again, it retroverts back to the common things, the common themes of Spider-Man. Like, you want to say these things to people, right? People are being dicks to you. People are doing this and that to you. You want to say these things, but we all know that like you just don't say those things. Like it's not proper. Like it's not the correct way to do things. It's rude. It's mean, you know what I mean, or whatever. But there's a part of you deep down inside that would just like to tell somebody to fuck off. You're being a fucking idiot. Stop it. You know what I mean? But you can't. Anyways, we see Peter leave that out because his inhibitions are gone. And it was entertaining. It was very fun. I enjoyed that portion of the movie, right?
It's an entertaining film.
Even the jazz scene, you know, where he's snapping his fingers and shit, and he's like doing his like hip thrusts, and he's like dancing. It was a wildly entertaining movie to watch, but I felt like it was wildly trash at the same time. Like it was.
Find us some shade, hot legs.
It's definitely an entertaining film. I don't think you can hold that against it. Whether it was done on purpose is a question, but I think almost like parts of this film as a comedy are like fantastic. Like as an unintentional comedy, it's kind of amazing. I think out of all the films, in a way, this was the one I was most looking forward to in the it's so bad it's good kind of category. And especially with I don't know if you all saw the like Bully Maguire memes or like YouTube videos, and I was just like, I gotta watch this film again. Like I just need to see these lines that are so ridiculous. Like if anyone doesn't know, like literally look up Bully Maguire anything. It's just people taking clips of this movie and inserting it kind of into other movies, and it's just Peter being a dick to someone. Like so Kylo Ren to whoever. Like it's amazing, and it's so ridiculous. But I think the one, I guess kind of differently than you, Andrew, I thought the Sandman visuals were kind of cool. Maybe not in as good of technology as we have now, but I thought like visually he was a cool villain. I thought his motivations are kind of like I didn't truly understand. Like he has a daughter, he wants to save the daughter, but he killed like Ben Parker. I didn't quite understand.
That was another thing.
I didn't quite understand him.
That's a big thing.
I didn't quite understand.
I want to throw this under the bus.
Yeah.
The worst thing about this movie is completely.
It's like a retcon.
Shitting on Spider-Man 1.
Yes, could just
big old dump. Just massive. It just
yes.
Completely fucking unnecessary as
like,
well.
Why?
You don't need it.
Why? Like,
You
why
don't need it.
why does every single villain need to be like directly tied to Peter in like the most intimate ways? Like, I don't get it.
Like I don't know. Like it almost feels like it's only there just to justify why Peter tries to kill him. Like he just tries to kill him, like straight up, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I think he has the black suit at that time, and he fights him and turns him into mud, and he's just like, yeah, good riddance, fuckhead. You know, like that. You know, like it's pretty much. I don't know, but everything around it doesn't work anymore because it
completely undoes all the emotionality
of
the first two movies, right? Like everything that he, struggled with like holding that vengeance in and just walking that line, it completely undoes everything in a major way. And it's I don't know. I mean, when you watch them, I had a Spider-Man week. Like I didn't go a day without watching a Spider-Man movie, and last night I watched 2 Spider-Man movies. Right? So it really sucked to watch. Because this first two movies, there was a lot of heart in them. And in this movie, they just introduced a character and it's like, yeah, you were fucking around with the wrong guy. Yeah,
Sort of. He was involved, but he wasn't the guy.
It's so unnecessary. It's so unnecessary.
And it's just it's an ass pull. Like it's not set up in any way. It just doesn't make sense, and it just doesn't add anything really.
Right.
And much like most of this film, it's just unnecessary, and I'm really not sure why they went in that direction, because I think there's very little in this film that I don't question everything that built to it happening. Because so I actually was like you, Henrique, because I was looking forward to this in a certain sort of way, because I've never hated this film. I've thought it's bad and not great, but I'm just it's obviously the worst of the trilogy, but it's it's fun enough. It's fine. It's got some silly, dumb shit in it, but it's fine. And I watched it this time and I'm like, this is actually just mostly bad. Sometimes it's veering, the fucking dance scene in the streets is just so goddamn ridiculous.
It's kind of good in the worst ways.
The jazz scene. I mean,
they're up watching the stars, and then this fucking comet, and then it latches onto his fucking bike. The whole thing's so contrived.
The whole Venom
I think that's what it is. Everything about this movie is so fucking contrived. To make this movie just relies on the laziest writing possible of Sandman has to be his uncle's killer. It has to be Uncle Ben's actual killer, because God forbid he have some sort of other motivation, like I'm just a fucking criminal and I'm stealing to get money for my daughter who's sick. That wasn't enough for some reason. I'm not saying that's an amazing motivation, but that's a pretty fucking common criminal motivation that I think would be fine if you let Sandman have time with his family. If you set it up in a way like Otto, if you give Otto had a moment with his wife dies in Spider-Man 2. It's tragic. He gets taken over by these things and he's corrupted by it. And then he realizes at the end, what have I done? I'm a monster. I can fix this, blah, blah, blah. Here it's just you don't get any of that for Sandman. He's just Sand Monster most of the time. And he's just fighting Spider-Man for no fucking reason most of the time, other than I'm in this truck now. I'm in the armored truck stealing shit. And it's just, there's just no setup or build up to anything that really ties anything together. Venom's obviously the biggest culprit of that, of Eddie Brock just being an out of nowhere character, sort of fake rival. For him, Topher Grace is real fucking bad in this.
He apparently has a small bladder.
just a horrible miscast for Eddie Brock / Venom. He's not good. The character of Venom makes very little fucking sense in this. Like you said, the symbiote just happening to land
just there.
They set up fucking Jameson's kid in the last one. It came back on the shuttle.
Right.
That's all you had to do. Just came back on the shuttle and he took it back with them to New York. You're done. It finds its way to Spider-Man from there. Not, it just happens to fucking fall near Spider-Man as he's hanging out with MJ. Come on. And you could get away with maybe one or two of those little contrivances in a movie, but no one, everything is like that. The only thing in this film that I think was adequately set up was Harry's turn to being a villain, because you had two films that built to that, and they fucked that too.
Yeah, they did.
Well, he just gets amnesia after 10 minutes.
What is he wearing? First of all,
I
think
know.
that's an important question
Paintball
to
mask.
ask.
It's not
paintball mask.
Paintball mask.
It's not the worst Green Goblin costume.
Snow glider.
It's
not the worst one. That's true. We'll get there. It makes sense that he's going to go after Spider-Man. He's got the gear. Fine, whatever. It looks ridiculous. He looks ridiculous. It's dumb. He's got amnesia after one fight sequence, and I'm hanging out with my best buddy, Peter. Peter's my best buddy. We're best buds. Also, I totally slept with this chick that he really liked once upon a time, and I still am in love with her. So we're best buds. Don't worry about it.
That's it.
I just think you want to do multiple villains. I think that's fine. There's a way to do it. I just watched Homecoming recently, and so I'm just going to go on a totally, completely different tangent into another Spider-Man movie. The movie has like fucking 9 technical comic book Spider-Man villains in it. I don't know if 9's the exact number, but there's like 4 or 5. Like Vulture's crew alone consists of like 3 or 4 villains, plus Donald Glover's in there, you know. Like there's like and they set up Scorpion in a sort of way. Like there's like 5 or 6 like potential villain setups, but that aren't actually villains. And some there's like 3 or 4 that actually are. You got Shocker 2, Vulture, the Tinkerer, like 4 villains in the main crew, and like it's like natural. Like they just work together and they're a crew, and it's fine, and it's not a big deal. Here you have basically 3 villains who are completely unconnected. And they do connect, obviously, Venom and Sandman at the end, in like the most contrived, like, hey, want to fight Spider-Man? Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that sounds good. All right, let's team up, bro. You know, like it's just there's no logic to any of it. There's like, no like thought that's put into any of it. It's just it's literally they just got to advance the plot.
It's literally a half-ass Sinister Six. Like they want to throw in some villains together, but they don't know like how to do it.
And I think that this is also symptomatic of another Spider-Man film that we're going to talk about, obviously, of setting up too many villains for no apparent reason. Perhaps, I guess, just for the sake of setting up sequels. This one's not even that. It's setting it up within the movie just in a very unnatural and forced way. The other one is we're planning the many sequels that we're never going to make. I just think, like, the Sinister Six makes sense. It's 6 villains that were independently fought Spider-Man, got their asses handed to them, and they say, well, if we just team up, there's 6 of us. We'll kick his ass if there's 6 of us. You know what I mean? Like that's just sound logic right there.
Just play the video game.
Like exactly, just play the fucking video game.
What's wrong with that? Let's set up
let's combine our might
after the other. Let's make it simple.
And this one just has to shove so many elements in there, and this wasn't intended to be the end of a trilogy, necessarily. It wasn't intended to be the once and for all kind of for Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, but it kind of ended up being, and it feels like they tried to stuff in so many elements, like even though it really wasn't even that. It's just a weird, overstuffed, half-baked kind of movie, and it's bizarre because it's still Sam Raimi, and it's like what happened?
Seems odd.
What happened? Yeah. Like what happened in the production of this movie? I know at least one thing that happened, and I'm sorry if I'm just ranting. We're getting into the bad ones, so this is where I just start to rant. Sam Raimi doesn't fucking like Venom as a character, and you know what? It shows.
From everything I've seen on screen on Venom, I don't fucking like Venom either. It's fine. I have not had one experience with Venom. Now, I've never read the comics, but I've had no experience with Venom that I enjoy. Everyone has been shit. Every single experience that I've ever seen Venom in has been fucking terrible. Every single one.
Well, not the 90s animated show where he's driving the truck and honking the horn. That's a classic. You can't forget about that.
I don't know that one. So maybe
watch
that's
the 90s
why I
animated
don't like
show
Venom.
for that.
I don't know. But you could make Venom compelling. He's a fucking alien symbiote. Like, that's cool. Right?
It's a cool concept.
Yeah, no.
He's corrupt. Black suit Spider-Man. Like, that's classic shit right there.
It's one of the best Spider-Man costumes.
It's fucking cool looking.
Yeah,
it's corrupting his personality, and like obviously they take a stab at that in this, but
they make him do jazz dances.
But like his he combs his hair down.
Who wrote that and then was just like, we need a whole scene where he just in a jazz club that Mary Jane works but was fired from her Broadway play, and he's just there with Gwen Stacy, who also fucking Gwen Stacy's in this film. And then he's like there with Gwen Stacy.
We haven't gotten there yet.
And he just starts doing like some dance and then like fucking jumping up on stage. And it's like the most insane scene. And like that's before the whole dance
he
thing.
He could tickle the ivory though.
Right.
He's pretty good at that.
What the fuck? Oh my god.
Like you can get that creative, like off in the fucking weeds. But we can't dial the rest of the shit in. Like, what part of the writing crew said, "Hey, you're kind of off in the weeds, but I like your creativity. Why don't we like point this creativity towards something else?" You know what I mean? I don't know. According to the thing I'm looking at, there's 3 accredited writers for this movie.
Right.
So maybe there were too many inputs and there was just too much disconnect. I don't know, but it was all over the fucking place, and it's a rough movie.
Fucking out there, man. But like, I gotta say, like, I enjoyed it, but like, not in this is any kind of quality cinema. This is like, this is so ridiculous. Like, I'm just laughing. But I think it's incredibly disappointing as a sequel to an amazing not Amazing Spider-Man 2, but to an amazing movie called Spider-Man 2, and it's rough, man. But it's got some scenes where
straight down.
It's got some scenes that make me laugh. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think they're intentionally made to be funny, but they kill me. Like, look at when Harry Osborn gets his memory back and he invites Peter to the diner just to tell him that he's the other guy.
Come on,
so good.
Like,
it's me, Pete. I'm the other guy.
Like, it's
having pie.
So good.
So good. My favorite, maybe my favorite GIF of all time. So good. GIF. So good. GIF. I mean, come on.
This movie,
Spider-Man 3 contributed one good thing to this world, and it is so good. GIF.
And all those other memes, like just the
it's a gold mine.
The lines that are they're just so stupid. You have to just laugh.
I would also. There's one scene in particular that I legitimately thought was very, very funny. And it's when Peter is trying to propose at the restaurant, and Bruce Campbell is the French maitre d'.
How'd that get in there?
No. Just oh yeah, him rehearsing. He's just so fucking cringy as a goddamn person.
There's just so many clips in there that you can use then to create other clips on the internet.
I mean, Bully Maguire is just 90% Spider-Man 3 material.
So good. Oh, it's amazing. It's like so bad that I enjoy it, but you have to laugh, because if you try to take it seriously, you'll get upset.
For what it's worth, I've had far more joy ripping on Spider-Man in the last 20 plus minutes that I've had watching it for the 2+ hour runtime that it existed for.
But just like so many iconic lines, like the rent line, like, "You get your rent when you fix this damn door." Like, oh god, like, it's just so many things.
Peter has her serving cake.
Yeah, he's like,
"Oh, good. You got some milk?
Get some milk."
She's okay. And she goes and gets the fucking milk. That poor girl. That poor fucking girl.
Oh man.
He goes to J. Jonah Jameson, like, exposes Eddie Brock, and he's like, "Okay, we'll take you." And he's like, "No, I want double the pay and this." And he just sits in J. Jonason's desk and puts his feet up.
Oh yeah. Just looks down, looks up. Oh man, that was very funny too. There's definitely some very comedic moments in this, just
humor.
laced with lots of cringe and.
But see, the best parts of this movie are the parts that, like, deep down you would want to do if you were Peter Parker. Those are the best parts. Fuck the landlord. Fuck Jameson. Fuck them all.
Yeah.
Fuck them. Like, you've watched for over 4 hours of and this is one consistent thing. I meant to talk about this in the beginning. Of all the Spider-Man movies we're watching, there's one consistent line. Peter gets shit on all the time.
All the time.
That's Peter's fucking thing. Maybe that's an every man thing. All the time, we're all getting shit on. All the time. You know what I mean? All the time. And it's so and I think that's the best part of this movie. The best part of this movie and all the other Spider-Mans. This is the one time Spider-Man says, "Fuck y'all. I'm doing what I want.
Well, it's interesting too because the movie actually opens with him like, in a good place in his life, but he fucking sucks.
Yeah,
Fucking sucks in the beginning.
Yeah,
he's like so up his own ass in the beginning, and it's just like, well, actually, Mary Jane, you went through this really shitty thing, but let me talk about myself for a few minutes.
The city loves Spider-Man.
I'm Spider-Man. I know a lot of things about everything. But then he kind of turns into just full on like asshole dickish, symbiote influenced Peter Parker and
fuck y'all.
And says fuck y'all. Yeah.
That's the best part of this. Those are the best parts of this movie is when Peter says, I'm going to walk down the street, snap my fingers, and do dance moves, and I'm going to go get a black suit, and I'm going to dance in front of the black suit place. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. I'm doing what I want all the time.
Yep.
Those are the best parts.
Yeah.
I'd like to do that one day. I'd like that one day where I can say fuck y'all and just
like
I don't give a shit.
This could almost work if it was like a spin-off story, like non-canon, just like what if. This is like a what if story. This is a what if. Like what if Peter Parker went bad or something like.
What if Peter Parker didn't give a shit?
Right.
That's it.
It's the only way you could make this work.
I think we're probably winding down with this one. How did you guys watch this film? I'm actually curious about it. I own a Blu-ray set that includes this one, but I'm curious how you guys watched it.
I paid good, hard fought money for it. I bought the trilogy. They released the 4K trilogy, so that's kind of what spurred me to rewatch all of them. But it's a nice little book collection thing, and I was like, well, I gotta watch them all. Can't stop there.
I think I plexed them all 4K remixes.
Oh, nice.
Just like Blu-ray rips.
Right. So the reason I ask is I apparently had bought I think I had like the trilogy, the Raimi trilogy, as one of the earliest Blu-ray releases, and then they put out an updated set a few years back now, and I bought it at that point, and I'm just like, why did I buy this and not get the 4K version of it? I'm like, that was very short-sighted to me. But I think the reason I bought it is there's actually an alternate version of this film called the editor's cut of Spider-Man 3.
Oh, shit. Did you watch it?
And that's what I watched when I watched this. And I'm still saying all the things that I'm saying because it didn't make a goddamn difference about this movie. However, I do bring it up because it does make some significant changes. I think most of it's little subtle things. It's actually a minute shorter than the theatrical cut, weirdly enough. It adds a couple scenes of like Peter being like showing him tempted by like the suit. The black suit, once he like kind of puts it away, like you can see him like longingly look at it. And there's a few moments where like you see like kind of the darkness, I guess, reaching out to him or something like that. The score is a little different here and there. There's an added scene of Sandman interacting with his daughter. He like turns himself into a big giant sandcastle and she like interacts with it. It's kind of nothing. It's kind of a nothing scene. The big difference is it cuts the infamous butler scene from the film and replaces it with a slightly alternate version of why Harry decides to join the fray in the third act. So if you guys watch the theatrical cut, there's what's the fucking butler's name? Don't tell me. I want to find out for myself.
Shit, what's his name?
Because it's fucking formidable.
Bernard the butler.
Yes.
His name is Bernard because Bernard there's a YouTube video called Spider-Man the Bernard Cut, and it's just all of Bernard's scenes from the trilogy put together. It's like 50 seconds long, but it's fucking hilarious. There's also outtakes of the actor doing his butler scene from Spider-Man 3 in which he calls the glider a gilder and calls it something else. At one point I forgot what it is, but it's very, very funny. Check it out. The scene's the dumbest thing possible. It was me who cleaned your father's wounds, Harry. He was pierced by his own glider. It's just, again, the most contrived, like, actually, I've been holding on to this secret for many years, Harry, but anyway, here's your motivation to go help out and fight in the final third act of this movie. Like, just dumb bullshit. And I think it got a lot of ridicule at the time that it came out. But in this editor's cut, they get rid of it, and Harry I think they have he has like Peter. Peter throws a fucking goblin bomb at his fucking face.
Oh yeah,
That's pretty
Walks
intense.
away.
Fucking,
Yeah.
I was like, when I watched that, I was like, he just fucking killed Harry.
Yeah, he tried to anyway. It's definitely attempted murder, at least. That's. I mean, I think he could go prison for that. I'm just saying, Spider-Man's a criminal. He's a fucking menace. Is what I'm saying. He's a fucking menace. If Eddie Brock caught that picture, then
That's it.
then he would have gotten the
Game
staff
over.
job. He would have kept it. He would have kept the staff job. No Venom, no nothing. Everything would have been fine. But basically, Harry, I think, he just looks at a picture of him with Peter and MJ and just kind of has this shit kind of moment, and then that's kind of what spurs him into action. It's kind of nothing. But it's better
a whole
than
lot better than Bernard.
It's like just him just kind of making fuck it. All right, Pete's my best buddy. When I had amnesia, we had a real good time. So I guess he's my best buddy now, and I'm gonna go help him out. The whole dialogue and banter that they try for, and that whole battle sequence at the end is like, I got you, pal. And it's like you guys haven't been friends in fucking years. It's just bad.
It's not good.
That whole sequence. The newscasters at the end are
No,
bad.
it's bad.
The kids, wicked cool. What? What?
Oh,
I'm pretty sure I read that kid is related to someone involved
okay,
in the
no.
production, which makes a lot of
That would
fucking
make
sense,
sense,
obviously.
No.
But
there's even this is the last thing I can think of, but the scene where Gwen Stacy is literally dangling from a building, and her dad and her boyfriend Eddie Brock are just staring and just like, oh yeah, hello sir. By the way, I'm dating your daughter.
dating your daughter.
Taking pictures.
what is that subplot?
She's
Why is that there?
She's
Who
fucking
needs it?
falling from a skyscraper, and no one gives a shit. Are you serious? What?
This is a weird fucking movie, man.
What? Yeah.
It's also not a good one.
No,
Sarah
as it turns
comments
out.
on that.
No,
She
no,
goes, "Do you
no.
think they would be that cool if she
what
was
I'm
hanging
saying.
from a
What the
building?" Hey, that's Gwen up there.
Yeah.
And who are you? Oh, I'm dating your daughter. Yeah. Oh, that's good to meet you.
Son, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Shit, it's real bad.
And what better encapsulation of Spider-Man 3 than that?
Oh boy.
So who wants to talk about Spider-Man 4?
No.
Oh,
No.
I'm seeing some confused faces.
The
Spider-Man
movie-
4 did
movie
not
that
happen.
never happened. Yeah.
It was a very, very sad tragedy that Spider-Man 4 did not release as planned on May 6th, 2011, as it was once scheduled to do. They were going to make a Spider-Man 4. I'm throwing this in as a mid to late episode fun fact, because I don't know how much we're going to talk about Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. So we may yet have many things to say. We may yet have very few things to say. We'll see. But I did want to throw this in here just because it's a weird kind of nugget of history of Spider-Man 4 almost happening, almost bringing back Sam Raimi, almost bringing back Tobey, Kirsten, and company. And so how I guess I'll ask this. Do you guys know anything about kind of what the intentions were with the Spider-Man 4?
I've really had things here and there, but I can't say I'd know what the script is or what really was going on. So not really.
So the I think in this has obviously all come out since then. The plans with Spider-Man 4 were to bring in some new villains, but of course some new villains. They were apparently going to maybe do the transformation of Dr. Kurt Connors into the Lizard. We had Dylan Baker playing Kurt Connors in both Spider-Man 2 and 3. Good kind of subtle cameos, or small bit roles building to maybe a full appearance as the Lizard. Didn't happen, obviously. But rest assured, we'll talk plenty of Lizard shortly. Bruce Campbell was also to have a bigger role, and some concept art came out in which a Mysterio was going to be part of the film. and there's a bit where Mysterio gets unmasked, and it looks suspiciously like Bruce Campbell. So there's no way to know if they would have maybe connected all his 3 cameos from the film, but I think that would have been great. I think that would have been excellent. But the big thing is the villain of the film was going to be the Vulture, which is obviously another character that we saw in later Spider-Man films and Homecoming particularly. It was the Vulture was going to be portrayed by John Malkovich, and Anne Hathaway was also set to be part of the cast, playing the character of Felicia Hardy, who many people, well, some people may know as the real name of the sometimes villain Black Cat. However, she was not going to be playing the Black Cat. She would be playing a version of the Vulture. She would be playing the Vulture's daughter and maybe going to become the Vulture S or something like that. I don't fucking know. But that's the Spider-Man 4 that once was and is never to be. And after Spider-Man 3, I think it's probably for the best that Sam Raimi hung it up for a bit. I guess he did the Oz movie with James Franco, but after that, I think he shifted to a producer role for many things. But he's heading back into the Marvel fold with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So come next May, we'll have some more Sam Raimi stuff to talk about. But that concludes our talks on the Spider-Man trilogy from Sam Raimi, and that brings us to The Amazing Spider-Man. Released July 3rd of 2020, nope, not 2020, good lord, 2012, July 3rd of 2012, written by James Vanderbilt, Alvin Sargent, and Steve Kloves, directed by Mark Webb, the man with the name born to direct Spider-Man films, but not direct them very well particularly. Stars Andrew Garfield, Emma Stone, Rhys Evans, Dennis Leary, Martin Sheen, and Sally Field. If this plot synopsis sounds familiar, well, I don't know what to tell you. After Peter Parker gains newfound spider-like powers, he ventures out to save the city from the machinations of a mysterious reptilian foe. So, who wants to kick this off? What do you guys think about Amazing Spider-Man?
Is it amazing?
No, I would say no.
That's
I would say it's serviceable at best.
it's all right.
It's fine. It's also unnecessary.
It's just fine.
Sarah did not like it at all.
Yeah, I don't think this movie is bad. I think does some things okay, does some things all right, does some things not so well. It's not bad. It's not egregious. I think we'll talk about egregious coming up, but it just rehashes a lot of things. Like we've all seen this. We've all seen the origin
It's got
story.
so many plot beats that are just
We've
identical.
seen this.
And like maybe there's like one tiny little thing that's like slightly different. It's like
the spiders were in the thing, and like it's
the same movie.
Right.
The first hour of this is like it's like 90% identical,
Right.
but also like maybe not as good either. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
I
some
don't
of
think it
some
is
of it's
as good.
different. You know what I mean? And we talked about obviously the web shooters. We don't need to super rehash that here, but like
right.
all
That was
right,
well done.
all right, he finds this biocable tech at Oscorp and builds his own web fluid and stuff based on that, and the web shooters to spit it out. Like
That's cool.
fine, he ends up, Uncle Ben gets killed, and that's
Of course.
very very.
That was kind
samey.
of dumb though. That was pretty dumb.
You didn't
Yeah.
like Uncle Ben
Like-
Seth in this one.
No. So like the Uncle Ben just charges at a guy when the gun just like he's like running away, right? Peter's like sees him kind of steal money and then run away and gives him his milk, whatever. And then Uncle Ben just walking down the street, all of a sudden this guy like falls and the gun just falls out. And they just both stare at it. Like, you have to get the gun because if he doesn't get the gun, he's going to shoot you. Like, why would he shoot a random person? But of course, Uncle Ben rushes at him and he shoots him. It's like, why? Why would you rush at why would you rush at a random person who just lost a gun?
It was
Like, I just don't understand.
I think it was a much more visceral death of Uncle Ben than we got in the other one.
We see
Sure.
it play out. I
Yeah,
feel
you
like
see the
in the
whole
other
thing
one,
play out,
you
right.
really only see the aftermath as like Peter kind of strolls up to it after the wrestling match. This time, he's kind of witnessing it really kind of the whole time play out in real time as he
Firsthand.
lets this guy, get across the street after robbing the convenience store, and
Pretty visceral.
yeah. I think it's definitely more visceral. I mean, it's a lot more involved. You see it kind of play out.
You also
it's
see
equally tragic.
Peter Parker shatter the door. So we'll talk about that.
That was kind of cool.
Yeah, we'll talk about the differences in the Spider-Man.
The spider powers were kind of cool.
So I don't hate Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. I think
agree.
he's
he's good.
He's good. I think he definitely plays. I think he's a more believable Spider-Man than Tobey Maguire.
This is jumping ahead, perhaps, to like just a roundup of Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 and just comparing it. He's a better Spider-Man. I think he's a worse Peter Parker. That is all due to the writing of these films, of course. I don't think it's necessarily
he's definitely
Tobey versus Andrew type of thing. I just think Tobey's Peter is just the doofiest motherfucker in the world, whereas Andrew's is like...
He's kind of an asshole.
He's kind of an asshole. He's like a hipster. Anna called him a hipster. I'm like, yeah, he is. He's just a hipster. He's not like some like nerdy, like uncool nerd. He's nerdy, uncool nerd. Very descriptive. He's like kind of cool, but like standoffish. It's just, I don't know. Like his characterization didn't really work for me. But like when he's the Spider-Man and the Spider-Man persona, like he's fun and like
he nails Spider-Man.
He gets witty. That aspect of it down pretty well.
It's So I enjoyed this. I enjoyed this representation of definitely Spider-Man. Like I feel like he just nails the witty aspects of Spider-Man, like the just like one-off quirks and just screwing with people and whatnot. I feel like he's more. I don't know. I feel like he's.
It feels more authentic and accurate, I guess, to the comic books.
Like if you were a high schooler with the abilities of Spider-Man, I feel like you would be screwing around with people like this version of Spider-Man than you would be Peter Parker, or not Peter Parker, but Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man.
Sure. Yeah.
I also I feel like there were a lot more modern sensibility, and this is where you can really sense the transition of like campy comic book thing to like I'm going to try to transition this to a conventional film thing. There were a lot more conventional film things present in this movie. It felt like more of a modern film pulled from a comic book versus a comic book movie. You know what I mean? It felt less campy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think it felt like a natural transition from what we were given before. I think that, even though it had its shortcomings, I think that, it felt like, particularly after Uncle Ben's death, it felt like a much more, it just felt more real, right? Like, specifically like when he held, Flash, is that his name?
Oh, yeah,
the
Flash.
bully.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's pinned him up against the things. He's like, listen, man, you lost your uncle. I understand what you're going through. You know what I mean? The way that Andrew Garfield reacts to the things happening in his life, it felt more real than what we got in some of the other iterations of Spider-Man, or Peter Parker, I guess I should say. He is a different iteration of the character, but in some respects, maybe it's because of the way that they chose to represent the film as a whole. And maybe the way that they tried to pull the character from the writing to the screen. I think that maybe it felt like a more authentic representation of a character versus a comic book character to the screen. There's things to be appreciated from the Tobey Maguire stuff, specifically like the moral responsibility to do stuff, and everything else like that whole.
They kind of dance around the quote in this movie a lot.
They do, absolutely. Like
you have a moral obligation to do good things, Peter.
Yeah, like that was horseshit. But I felt like the actual characterization felt more authentic than it did in the other things. Like it felt more idealistic in the first, in the Sam Raimi films, where this feels just more authentic. The way he reacts to the death of Ben Parker, and just the way he like grapples with adapting to his powers and things like that. Like it just felt like a more authentic representation of what somebody would actually do versus the Sam Raimi things, which it's just a departure. You know what I mean? It's just it feels like, listen, we're making a movie, we're not making a comic book, so this is what we're going to do.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. The Raimi ones to me feel like they're like basically taking the spirit of the 1960s Spider-Man comic books and like putting that on screen. This is a bit more modern, I think, in terms of what it's going for.
You can feel it in the cinematography.
So it feels exactly. It feels different as a result, even though it's hitting on, as I would say, a lot of the same plot
exact
beats.
Fucking plot points.
It does do it in a slightly different way, by making it more modern, maybe a little bit more grounded, and with a different aesthetic, certainly as well. But it's when it comes down to it, I would posit that it's unfortunately too much of the same. I think overall, but it is at least trying to be somewhat different, I guess, in some aspects of it, you could say.
I can tell you one thing that I liked and one thing I don't. One of the many things I don't like about this movie, but one thing that I do like was I thought, at least in this movie, Gwen Stacy was written better and kind of serviced better in this role. And I've always liked Gwen Stacy a lot, like in the comics and in the TV show, like because she's in some ways like Peter Parker's scientific equal, if not better than him. And like you could see it where like she's number one in the class, he's number two, and like she's already got a position at Oscorp and he doesn't.
Fucking high schooler with a full-time position at Oscorp. Saying, that's some pretty intense shit.
Gwen Stacy's a genius, and they do have good chemistry, and obviously they started dating and all that stuff afterwards. But I think in this movie they do that part well. The ending is like a whole other thing, but like at least for the majority of the film, I think it's done pretty well. And I think one of my biggest gripes with the film is probably the lizard and Kirk Connors.
Yeah, he was pretty fucking terrible. I didn't enjoy him at all.
Like I think as a villain, the lizard itself looks just like fugly. Like
the design's bad. It's just a bad design.
Awful. Like I watch it and I'm like, this is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. Like who thought of this? Like just make a giant crocodile man.
I have very strong feelings about the lizard's design.
So fugly.
I have very strong
sound like
feelings.
I do about fucking Sandman.
Yeah, I guess so.
I hate how the lizard looks. It's terrible.
Yeah, I understand that when the lizard was first created, he had kind of the flatter face.
Yes.
But the iconic lizard has a fucking snout. And
He's a fucking crocodile,
give me
man.
snout lizard or give me death. And I guess this movie decided to kill me. He looks bad, and I think it's because he's talking throughout, so they probably felt that animating like the crocodile mouth moving around might feel kind of weird with like human voice coming out of it, even if it's a little modified. Whatever, man, that's some bullshit, is what I say.
Even a short snout, right?
But I think that's like visually it's awful, but like story wise, I think you miss the beats of like what make the lizard like a great Spider-Man villain.
Yep.
He has no family. You don't see his family at all. And like he's like in most iterations, like he's driven not because he lost an arm. Like you're not a subhuman if you don't have an arm. Like you're you can be a perfectly normal and capable person with an arm missing. Like it doesn't make you less of someone. Like, and I think this movie is like slightly insulting in that sense. But that he's like, that's his only focus. Where like, I get that that's a part of his character, but like they missed the whole family aspect of it. And it's almost like a Doc Ock where like the serum should kind of take away his control. And like, he's such a brilliant man. He wants to do good for the world, but like the serum corrupts him kind of thing. But like, no, he kind of seems like he's still Kirk Connors. He's like, I just want to make superhumans that are like part reptilian. And I'm just like, what?
He just wants to turn everyone into lizard people.
Yeah, I'm just like,
It's
no.
fucking stupid. Like
No.
that
It's real
part's
stupid.
fucking stupid. It's real
And
bad.
it's also
no
I
more
think it's yeah. I mean, it's dumb. It's dumb. First of all, I think that's obviously worth noting, but it also it goes nowhere in terms of the film itself because
No.
it's like the whole scene of like the SWAT team getting turned into lizard people, and then they are never seen again until they're getting reverted back into humans, and it's just like, why are you wasting our times with this like this subplot? Like, it's
bad.
It's
bad.
It's bad, but it sucks because the lizard is a great. It's another like
No, I think he could be a great
Octavius,
villain.
like Dr. Octopus. He's a tragic villain. He's not someone who's just evil like Green Goblin is, or like some other Spider-Man villains. They're just like straight up like we're fucking criminals and like fuck you, like we're gonna steal shit and because we want to get rich and
they have a
Spider-Man's gonna get in
connection.
our way, and so this connection between Spider-Man and then we saw it in the Raimi films. He had a connection with Dr. Connors. Like it would have been tragic to see that Dr. Connors turn himself into the lizard and then have Peter have to grapple with that. Here, Peter and Dr. Connors have effectively no connection other than the fact that
He found a
his
brief
parents.
No,
Well,
yeah,
his
no,
he
Don't
finds a
even
briefcase.
get into the parents.
There's a 5-minute musical montage of Peter dissecting his parents' past, and he's connected to Kurt Connors in that way, and whatever, man. Like that's all bullshit.
That's
like
one of my
like,
least favorite tropes in all of movies.
Yeah,
fucking awful.
Yeah, I just think that like they really missed the fundamental core of what the lizard should have been as a villain, and you took the words out of my mouth because that's one of the big things that I want to hit on in terms of what my disappointments are with this film is because I'm disappointed that it's just a rehash and an unnecessary rehash and sometimes a less than rehash. I mean, it's definitely worse than the first Raimi film for me. It's not bad. It just does nothing original, and then unfortunately, what it does that is original is actually just bad. And so for the most part, you know what I mean? Like the lizard stuff is just really bad. It's nothing of it is really good. I don't find Rhys Evans particularly compelling as Connors. The lizard as a villain looks bad. I don't like when he's on screen at any point because of that. They gave him the lab coat for like 3 seconds and almost felt like a fuck you as a result. The one like shining beacon in this movie is Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy because I think she's really great. I do think she's very good. I think she and Garfield, for obvious reasons, have some chemistry. At least they felt some sparks in real life for a time in their lives. And I think it shows. I think they're good together. The writing's a little wonky sometimes, but it's, high school romance. Not everything goes smoothly, of course. But yeah, other than Gwen kind of being like a breath of fresh air because it's not MJ and it's like something different, like that's the one thing that it felt like, all right, let's take a stab at something original. And I guess the lizard, it's something original. Like that one works and that one doesn't. So that's exactly what you said, Enrique. And I'm just fully co-signing it all because I think you're right. Yeah. I think that's unfortunately the third act of this movie just devolves into uninteresting. I'm turning everyone into lizard people.
Hey, Spider-Man's trying to get to the tower. Let's line our cranes up, guys.
Oh, that's cornball as shit.
It's cornball. I didn't hate it.
I think
It's very corny.
I mean, it's the same energy as you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us.
New York, baby. Yeah. But
it's the same energy, but
I think like.
Not good.
Can we talk about the promise that Peter kept for 2 minutes? Where like
I totally respect your decision, except actually go fuck yourself, you fucking dead fuck.
I think until a certain point, it's kind of well done. Like you have Peter dating Gwen, and it's a whole thing about like, can you keep the people you love out of harm's way and still be Spider-Man?
Wait, I think this is the Amazing.
It kind of gets into the second one.
It's transition right to the second one. We'll get there shortly.
So right at the end, Captain Stacy dies, and he's like, "Promise me, you leave Gwen out of it." And he's like, "Okay,
fuck you, Gwen. I'm not going to your father's funeral."
And then it doesn't even. It's not even to the next movie. It's literally the same movie where he's just like, "Fuck your dad. Let's do it."
I went to your father's grave and I pissed all over it.
Like, I was just like, what?
I can't see you anymore, Gwen. I know your dad died and
Yeah.
this and that. Come on,
Well,
Peter.
if nothing else, the whiplash of one scene to the next does perfectly transition into the next film of
Oh, God.
every scene oscillating between will they or won't they, so maybe that's what they were setting up was a truly awful sequel in which that was a huge focal point and it was bad in every scene in which it happened,
Which is
I don't know.
CW-isms.
CW-isms, you're not wrong.
Spider-Man is ripe with CW-isms.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Also, the way they do science in this movie is like even worse than the Raimi ones. Like, it's just like some random shit, and just like you throw some mice in there, and then they regrow arms and shit, and I'm just like, what? Like,
that
what
was
is-
a computer algorithm. Okay,
I'm
you
just
guys don't do that at the hospital.
And then the computers always talk to you, and I'm just like, I don't know. There was like zero effort. Like,
Well, you knew the solution to the decay rate algorithm, obviously.
Exactly. You're
I'm
just-
sure.
Yeah.
I was along for the ride. I said that shit looks perfectly reasonable. I thought it was pretty good.
It's just
Hey, 9 mice died, but this one mice lived. Oh, we
Yo,
solved it.
so many mice would die in like a normal thing, but that's not even the worst. That's not.
And that one mouse they injected shit with ate the other mice.
Yeah.
The other mouse. Did you see that?
that?
I saw it. Hit a little snack.
There's something wrong with fucking Jerry or whatever the fuck the mouse was called.
Yeah.
It's like, oh fuck, cool.
Bad. It's
Well,
bad.
Yeah,
That's
so
that's all I
Amazing
got.
Spider-Man.
That's all I got.
I thought that the transition between the Sam Raimi iterations of Spider-Man and Peter Parker were interesting to see the transition to like modern filmmaking techniques.
Sure.
It's also worth talking about the suit because I
Sure.
particularly
Oh, yeah.
I thought the suit was fucking beautiful. I was looking at it and it was real shiny.
In the first one?
Huh? Maybe I'm
In
thinking about the
first
second one. No, I'm thinking about the second one. I thought the second one looked really nice. It was really cool.
We'll get to it. I think the first
Well,
one
that's what
is
I'm
like,
asking. Are you
meh.
talking about the suit in the first one?
First
The
movie's
first
meh.
Amazing Spider-Man
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
the first
Yeah, and the first
Spider-Man?
Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah, because the Raimi one's the same in all three movies.
Right, minus
It's
the
just- it's the
black
black
suit,
suit, but that's the fucking same. So, your reaction specifically, are you reacting to
'Cause there's two different- yeah,
the suit
it's
from the
a-
second one or in the first one? Because it's very different from 1 to 2.
Oh fuck, I don't know.
I would say 2
One's like more
looks a lot like the
basketball.
Raimi suit,
Yeah.
but it's got big eyes. The first one, it has the texture of a
Like
basketball,
a basketball.
but he's got the yellow eyes on it, like smaller yellow eyes.
Maybe I'm thinking the
Yeah,
second
look it up.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
I
we
gotta
should-
look
we
it
should-
up.
Why
I
don't
don't
you look
know.
it up and-
Just-
and
it looked
report
really
back?
nice on the TV. It was real shiny. Maybe I'm thinking of the second one.
Might be.
I might be thinking of the second. Which one does he have it was notable that the textures and stuff like
He's, like,
changed
falling
in
down?
his palms.
When he's falling down, kind of that scene.
Yeah, you could see it in his palms, like the reds and the blues and everything, kind of like.
I want to say that's the second one.
Maybe I'm thinking of the second one.
So,
But it was cool. The spider logo was cool. I like the suit I like the differences in the suit. I will say that I don't know the differences particularly.
Sure.
between
And then
one
you
and
see
two.
in like the organic like creation of the suit and like with the silly glasses and the hoodie and the cover up. So like I could see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was cool. I thought it was okay. I like the fact that he made his own spider shooters.
Yeah,
his
I like that.
his web shooters. I did like that, even though which one was hooking the battery? That was the second.
The second one.
The
oh.
second one gets into. We'll get into that.
Yeah, let's get into it.
I am not a fan of this Aunt May.
Oh, fun fact. I'm pretty sure Sally Fields was the sister of one of the physics professors at University of Florida,
Oh wow!
Dr. Fields.
That seems. I feel like I've heard this before,
Right.
so you must have told me this back.
Right,
in the
I'm
day
pretty
or
sure.
something
I'm
like
pretty
that.
sure that was like the connection.
Yeah, no, I definitely prefer the
yeah.
first Ant-Man.
No, the first,
Ant-Man was,
yeah.
She's great. You know,
I do
how old is
appreciate
this man's aunt? But you know, he's a 40-year-old man in high school, so it makes sense, I suppose. But
we didn't talk. Well, I don't think we talked. We may have talked about it, but I do appreciate Martin Sheen's version of Uncle Ben, even though he does not deliver any sort of. He's
all right.
Worse.
He's all
He's
right.
worse than the first Uncle Ben. But I feel like that's just because of the writing of Uncle Ben. But I do appreciate Martin Sheen's version of just like, kind of like, just old school kind of grandpa kind of vibes. You know what I mean?
yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? He just gives like old school deliverance. Like, your Aunt May, who is my wife, you're disrespecting. You need to go in there and apologize. Like,
Yeah,
just
I didn't
old
mind
school.
that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think that there's, I think that this movie is ripe full of shortcomings. But I do like I like the characterization of some of the characters.
Yeah. It's not without its
merits.
Yeah,
right.
merits,
I think it's got merits. So, yeah, but definitely the shortcomings are the fucking lizard. It's terrible. There's a lot of shit in this movie.
Right.
There's a whole lot of shit in this movie.
What about the next movie, though?
Then the next movie, I don't think has any merits.
Well, let's talk
okay.
about it. The fifth and final film we will discuss on this episode, mercifully, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, released May 2nd of 2014, written by Alex Kurtzman, Roberto Orci, and Jeff Pinkner, directed by Mark Webb, starring Andrew Garfield, Emma Stone, Jamie Foxx, Dane DeHaan, Paul Giamatti,
The
Sally
Rhino.
Field.
The Rhino.
When New York is put under siege by Oscorp, it is up to Spider-Man to save the city he swore to protect as well as his loved ones. So yeah, why don't we do the Spider-Man 3 treatment here and talk about what we liked about this film? All right, let's go ahead and talk about what we didn't like about this.
All right.
What did you guys like about this?
I thought of something. It's not a like, but like maybe give us some points in the final act, which is not good, but it's a very more serious thing. Peter like stops with the quips and like kind of plays it seriously. So I thought like the tonal kind of shift was okay. Like, we'll talk about all the problems this movie has, but like it didn't have the one thing that I feel like some of the MCU films do have later on, where like they start just like quipping when it's like very serious, like people are about to die kind of scenes. And like,
sure,
as a quippy character, Peter stopped doing that. So
within a scene, it sticks to a particular tone without undercutting.
I appreciated it. It's So like the way they ended it was, I assumed the way they wanted to do it, and they followed through on their vision. I think it's a pure vision. If you like, they did what they wanted to do. We can talk about whether it worked, but I like the ending. I think is like very clear what it wants to do, and it went for something. And I'll give it some props for that. That's what I got.
Andrew, what are your positives for The Amazing Spider-Man 2? First time viewer of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. You must have been blown away with this.
I really like the score in this movie.
There you go.
Particularly the dubstep. He lied to you. He did this to you. He did this to you. Shock him. Or whatever the fuck they say. I don't know what the fuck they're going
He is my enemy. That's Spider-Man.
It's kind of great in surround sound though, because the different things come out from different speakers, and you're just like, and then like the dubsteps come from the front, and it's like, and it's
So fun fact, I just had I had my home I paid these people to tune my shit.
Yeah.
I had to borrow my neighbor's like it's like this little mini mic thing, but it's a calibration mic. And they took all these things. I watched them do it over like Open Desk and stuff. And it was like this whole thing. It took like 3 hours. and they completely calibrated all the speakers and all the subs and all the frequencies and shit. And it made a significant difference, I'll tell you that. But
well, I don't want to cut in, but Anna happened to hear my wonderful dubstep that I did for you, for the listeners, and she came busting in. I think she's got something to say, so I'm going to give her the microphone.
I'd like to.
Fuck you, Hans Zimmer.
Does Hans Zimmer have anything to do with this?
Oh, he does.
Oh yeah,
Him,
he's one of
Junkie
5-6
XL?
people
Yeah.
that fucking worked on this.
No way.
Seven
Hans
people
Zimmer's
that
got
worked
his
on the
name on
score
this?
for this.
Same
Yeah.
man who did Dune.
It's
No
clear
way.
when the man gives a shit, and
Yes.
it's clear when the man does not give a flying fuck.
Anyways, yeah, that was
Yeah.
oh wow.
All right. Was
That
there anything
blows
that you
my
mind.
actually liked in this film?
Hans Zimmer, Pharrell Williams, Johnny Marr, Mike Einziger, Junkie XL, Steve Mazzaro, and Andrew Kawazinski. All 7 people credited for the music for this film.
Jesus
You
Christ.
can have it.
I mean, it's so fucking all over the place. So it checks out.
I don't
It
think
checks
that
out.
this movie has a redeeming quality in my book. I can't
Not-
think of anything.
not a
that's
single one?
Yeah, no, it was really fucking bad. Like, you know, you would think when I was gonna say Gwen Stefani, when Gwen Stacy, you know, bites the bullet at the end, you would think that there would be like. Maybe the redeeming quality about the whole movie is like her speech. Maybe like her high school
I mean,
speech.
They did
was
it.
good.
I guess like I don't know if you like give them credit or you take it away, but like they killed Gwen Stacy, and like I don't know, like is that a good
It
thing?
just didn't feel like it felt within like 5 to 10 minutes of her dying. Spider-Man's like, oh yeah, that's what she's all about. Like I'm gonna keep going, and it just felt super underwhelming. Like it was, I don't know. I didn't get a whole lot from it at all. I mean, I got the
It's yeah. I mean, it's taking one of, I think, maybe the most pivotal, maybe one of the most pivotal storylines in like Spider-Man mythos, and not doing it like
That's
totally
true.
right. Like kind of undercutting, I think, the emotionality of the moment, and
also I don't mean
go
to,
ahead.
I don't mean to cut you off. Spider-Man shot his web after her, and like, yeah, you're gonna do the fucking spider webs took the shape of his fucking hand, which was just super fucking gimmicky. It was insulting. It was fucking stupid. It was so bad. It's like, what are your fucking fingers doing in the spider webs? Oh, awful. I hated that. I hated that from the bottom of, just from everything in me.
It's one of those things. I think, like, obviously the Amazing Spider-Man went in a different direction with Peter's love story. MJ, they had done the back and forth of that to death. So then they bring in Gwen, and then for some reason they just reiterate the same beats of Spider-Man 2 and 3 within a single film of just, I break up with you, Peter. I break up with you. But also I'm madly in love with you. But also I'm moving to England. But also I'm madly in love with you.
I can't do this anymore. I break
But
up
I can't
with
do
you.
this anymore.
I can't do it.
But also
I break up
I'm-
with you.
You know,
No.
but also, oh
I break
shit,
up
I'm
with
dead.
You.
It's about 5 different movies smashed into one, and I think that's true for all of the film. But I think in particular with like the Peter Gwen stuff, it's like the relationship stuff is not good.
done well.
It's not good
done
throughout.
well.
No, can we talk about Harry Osborn?
Oh God, no.
We got
No.
thoughts on Harry Osborn.
No,
We all got
please.
thoughts on him. You had some thoughts on his hair, as you sent to us in a text in our
It
text
looked
chain.
like he was. It looked like he was on the same shit that Peter Parker was on in Spider-Man 3. Where, like,
yeah,
they-
he combed his hair down
but-
and just
But the
yeah,
thing
he's
was,
got the
it all
symbiote.
culminated around his nose. Like they just like, let's brush all his hair down to his nose.
Anna made a comment like, "What the fuck is his hair?" And then I told her about your text about his hair, and I was just like, "You guys are on the same wavelength there, that's for sure."
And then he has fucking meth teeth at the end.
Oh God! Like Green Goblin's so bad.
We said you said New Goblin was not the worst Green Goblin design we would get. Here we are, Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Design is
bad. Harry Osborn.
The story's bad. Like nothing's good about it. It's the motivation is fucking stupid.
My best friend, who I haven't seen in 8 years, I'm dying.
I need your blood.
Give me your blood.
And like,
I mean, Spider-Man's
the fucking
blood.
virus. One, they just make up random shit. Fucking retrovirus, whatever bullshit. Like, they just make up random words. And then two, why is his dad dying when he's like 60? All of a sudden, he finds out about it, and all of a sudden, he's dying. Like,
he's just like, as soon as he finds out that he has it, he's dead.
But like, as soon as he heard about it, he's like, oh shit, I'm fucked.
Well, I mean,
WebMD, bro. He looked that shit up on WebMD.
We got Dr. Jaime on the line here. Isn't that how this shit works? That's how it works, right?
One, they just made
His
up.
dad
Like,
was turning
again,
fucking
they literally,
green. His
they
dad
literally
was
made up
green.
some shit. They literally just like threw in science terms
Wait.
together. Just like,
I'm sorry. Are you telling me this is not scientifically accurate?
oh God.
Is that what you're telling me?
You're telling me with all the resources of Oscorp, they wouldn't say, "Hey, listen, doesn't matter what we shoot in your blood. We can just hook you up into the biomachine
Right.
thing." That,
And then it's
Listen,
like, oh,
they
but you
killed.
need-
They killed. Look. They killed all the spiders. It's not a big deal. They killed all the spiders. But guess what? We also kept all their shit and we put it in this very, very secretive place called Special Projects.
Yes, fucking special. No, and then the worst, the whole tying
Don't
in
worry
with the
about it.
parents.
We put it in Special Projects.
Tying in
man.
with the
Like,
parents. So like, Peter's dad used his own blood to mix with the spiders, and he sent it to fucking train station in the middle of the fucking hidden subway. And like Peter used some tokens because his dad would always take the certain train at a certain time, and I'm just like, what? like,
it's all a little too much.
like it's the most ridiculous.
You talk about Spider-Man 3 being contrived.
Like, what
This is next level compared to Spider-Man
like,
3 of
holy
just the
shit.
dumbest bullshit possible.
Like every plot line is insane.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I didn't answer the question that was set. I don't know if I
And
asked
is
it,
there
but like, what's
anything
the
that you
redeeming
like about
quality
this
of the
Jamie
movie?
Foxx. Jim
No,
Max.
he's definitely not my answer.
No, I think there's the one thing we kind of mentioned but didn't mention. The suit.
the suit's
suit
good.
looks pretty good.
You're right.
The suit looks
the
pretty
suit
good.
and some of the action is pretty good.
Yeah.
Some of the action's good. Some of the Spider-Man,
Yeah.
like
I think the
Spider-Maning
intro scene
about is done well.
Before you get to the rhino, like the swinging and like the falling and like seeing
Alexi Sid
The, like-
Savage 6867.
the first person Spider-Man shots, like those are cool. I enjoyed that.
You know, I have to disagree with you. I don't know what compels people to put things in the first fucking person when you're swinging, doing whatever.
Fucking Spider-Man.
When is first person a good perspective for fucking movies?
Doom.
Oh, well, that's a fucking hot take. What was the Doom? What was
I'm joking. It was like a fucking 10-minute first person sequence, and it was disorienting and vomit inducing. So it was
in the
just a
original
joke.
Dune or the other Dune?
Doom.
Oh, Doom.
Doom.
I thought you said
with
Doom.
Dwayne
I was
Johnson.
like, oh fuck,
and
well, that's a hot
Carl
take. I don't
Urban.
remember any first person in fucking Dune. I don't.
No.
I immediately
joke.
retract my statement.
I'm in like just pissing on everything mode, and it's like full sarcasm and I just
Well, I do remember Doom. God damn it,
Dune. It's too many movies with similar sounding like syllables on them. It's just not right.
Right. But yeah,
Very confusing.
I'm not a fan of the first person. Like, I don't want to see you. I don't want to see first person. I want to see you doing it in the third person.
If it's
Because
not
I'm a third person.
I think the swinging was like all right. Like
I think it could be fine.
the
It's
swinging
that-
looked okay.
I think in 24 frames per second, it doesn't feel right. Like first person, you experience that like yourself. Like I don't know what fucking frame rate you can assign to real life, but I guarantee it's higher than 24. You know what I mean? So when you kind of
Andrew's
see
eyes
like
over
kind
I
of
might
like
be
a, like
seeing
a, like
24
a,
right now.
And he's
that might be
working on
true.
12 frames per second.
but there's like a vague choppiness like that's just like associated with 24 frames. It's like a filmic frame rate. There's a reason like video games like 30 feels like low and 60 is like what you strive for, and like 120 is like mind-blowing shit. You know what I mean? Like it's something about like first person is kind of designed to be a bit more realistic, and so if you kind of take it away from that, then it doesn't kind of have that sort of quality. You could throw some Hobbit 48 frames technology at it. That maybe help
my brain.
That would maybe help with the first person stuff, but it's just a little
I will
disorienting.
say, I think maybe this one's the one with the suit.
Yeah, this is a nice suit. It's a nice suit.
I think the
Is
suit's
this the one
a
that's
huge
got
upgrade over
is
the
this
first
the one
one.
that's got
It's
it
very
just
sleek. It's
and
sleek, but it's
shiny.
a classic. Yeah, but it kind of ripples. Like I think the suit looks great.
There was a lot of attention to detail, like when he would like spread his
It kind of
slack in
moves.
his yes.
Yeah.
It was good. Like it.
Yeah.
That
So
felt
props
that
to
felt good.
props to the visual artist who did the suit.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
positive. It's a positive.
that's a positive.
Yeah. Can we talk about
Is it?
like,
Are we
we truly-
avoiding the Electro
no, can
in
we
the room?
just talk about Electro?
Electro. Spider-Man knew my name. Fucking guy.
This is one of the worst written characters, one of the worst villains. Like, not a
Does
great
all it
performance by
take-
Jamie Foxx.
Does all it take to like become a superhero is get bit by electric eels? Is that all it takes? I'll fucking dive in the tank right now.
Well, electric eels,
electrocuted, and then he
dubstep.
fell, and then his teeth cuddles in. You know, because
There's a literal
Yeah,
shot
yeah.
of his teeth getting fixed, and I lost
literally
it at that point.
like
Anna can vouch for me there. I lost
rewound
it.
it to show Eastly, and I'm like,
What did she think about that?
I'm like, watch your teeth.
That's what she's gonna.
Who needs
Guys, I have an
orthodontics?
experimental dental procedure. I'm gonna electrocute the fuck out of you, and it's gonna fix your gap.
I don't even know what that says
She
about
might
you.
lose her medical license.
But like, what the like? Was he just Dr. Manhattan? But like electricity.
He was full on Dr. Manhattan at a few points, like
without-
especially towards the end when he's like reconstituting himself from, and he's full blue and just like floating. And it's just like, oh, they just watched Watchmen a few days ago and were like, that shit's badass, bro. You know, like
it's not Electro again. It's
not.
doing a villain
not.
disservice by like changing him and not making him better. Like I'm not like a
No,
huge Electro is the
they-
greatest
well,
villain
I
or
mean,
anything, but like what the fuck is
no.
this?
But he's like a fucking petty criminal who like can do like electric shit.
But like who
that's it.
the fuck is this guy who's just like Spider-Man didn't remember my birthday when I looked like a different character, and I'm just like, what the fuck?
He carries a book in with its.
Yeah, and like props to Spider-Man for remembering a guy. I can't remember.
And even says like,
can't-
"Oh, I didn't recognize you. He looks a little different
I can't remember
back then."
patients that I see like 1 week beforehand.
Bro,
like,
you're blue.
he is literally blue, and he
Oh, and your teeth are better.
right, like he looks nothing like.
You don't have a
Max
comb over
Dillon.
anymore. You're like bald now.
But
Fucking stupid.
and the whole thing about like it's my birthday, and it's like oh. And then BJ Novak's just an asshole. Like he didn't help the cause.
Oh my god. So let's press pause here. I talked about Homecoming setting up villains and like having villains. Like there's a lot of like characters that turn into villains. This movie is nothing but setup. It's nothing but setup. This movie was so concerned with setting up
Sinister
every
Six.
villain in Spider-Man's rogue gallery that it forgot to just make a good movie in the first place. Because Oscorp is like, here are fucking Dr. Octopus's arms and Vulture's wings, and also Black Cat works for the company and she's Harry's assistant and she was Norman's assistant, but also Electro, but also Green Goblin, but also Norman Osborn's in this, and he's dead, but he'll be fine. And the Rhino, we haven't talked about the Rhino, you know.
They got fucking Paul Giamatti
So
to do that.
I thought that was going to happen
Like-
in the beginning of the movie.
Yo, Paul Giamatti wanted to take a vacation.
Going full Rhino, like
He-
with the suit and stuff. You mean?
Paul
Yeah.
Giamatti just wanted to do a vacation, and he was like, "Fuck this!
I'm sure he got paid
I'm gonna,
a good
gonna
chunk
show
of
up,
money.
and I'm gonna do this stupid fucking movie, and I'm gonna get a couple $1 million, and that's it."
Man, I wish I had those.
They had Felicity
opportunities.
Jones do a nothing role,
Nothing, just nothing,
like
just
absolutely
purely nothing.
It had to
Purely
be her
nothing.
first role, right?
I don't think
doubt
so.
it.
Let's fact check that.
She's
but
not-
surely not. Surely not. It was not. It's fully in the middle of her filmography on the Wikipedia that I just quickly stumbled
Right,
upon.
like there's no way.
And I'm not saying like, obviously she's gotten bigger roles since then. She was, Rogue One was 2 years after, and that's clearly a lead role. She was in The Theory of Everything as
Right.
like
No,
I think one of like the secondary character in that
but she
film,
was
the exact
solid.
same year that this movie came out. So she was getting good roles at that point. This is insulting for her stature. For this is insulting for anyone's filmography, really. I mean, no one wants this except for Paul Giamatti. He was happy for the mill. He
just
he
get
took
that
$1 million
money, Paul.
paycheck and called it a day.
Get that
Barbed
money.
wire tattoo.
Oh my god! I mean,
No.
I
can't believe it was
don't.
like a pre-credit sequence. Like I didn't think that was gonna happen. I thought that was gonna happen.
Oh right, yeah, the cut to black when it's the mid fight type thing. Like, yeah, fine. I guess I can live with that, but I don't know. It's
Like,
not much.
Who
Not much
thought of
good that
this?
came out of this film.
It was pretty bad.
Actually, I take it back. All right, so I think I've probably mostly exhausted my frustrations with this film. I have two thoughts.
yeah.
And the one thing I'll say is the best thing that happened
They
from
stopped
this
it.
film, not necessarily within the film or anything like, but because of this film didn't perform all that well. It did fine. You know what I mean? For like a Spider-Man movie, it did fine, but relative to other Spider-Man movies, it
I mean,
wasn't super
for
hot.
Spider-Man movies, like pretty low gross.
got okay reviews, not amazing. You wouldn't say, not terrible, although I think they should have been. But this movie clearly something went awry just enough that Sony had to say to Marvel Studios, as it turns out, we don't know what we're doing. We have absolutely no fucking clue how to make a Spider-Man movie, as has been abundantly clear, particularly with this movie. But really also, if you looked at anything that wasn't just a carbon copy of the Raimi film and the last one, you can see very plainly that in the past decade, we are completely fucking lost and have absolutely no clue what to do.
Save us.
Please help. Please help. So we got Spider-Man Homecoming as a result. So, and I guess
take it.
before that, Civil War, Spider-Man coming into Civil War. We got Spider-Man going into the MCU because this movie was so fucking bad. If this movie was not,
Right.
if this movie was even passing, if this movie was the same quality as even the first Amazing Spider-Man, we'd probably have Amazing Spider-Man 3 with I don't know, one of the villains they set up in this. Maybe we'd finish the Rhino fight and then we move into
just ruin Craven or something. while you're at it.
I don't know, whatever else they were setting up. I don't want to know because I don't want to live in that world. That's a bad
continuation
part of
of
the
the Green
multiverse that we
Goblin.
want to stay away
That's
from.
not the multiverse I want.
Yeah, that's true. They did. Harry is still alive at the end of this
God.
movie, so he'd be coming back. He'd be using some more meth, and he's going to be coming back and fighting. That's for sure.
The scene where Harry goes into Oscorp or Ravenclaw to free Electro is just so stupid. He's like, I pulled a fire alarm that lets me get all the way through security and like go to like the highest security prisoner here, and no one cares. I'm just like, this is so stupid. Like this is the whole movie is just so stupid.
It's the worst. It's been the worst movie I think I've seen this year. I think
There you go.
I could say it. It's pretty fucking
Pretty bad.
terrible.
It's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad, and I know what. I'm glad you both said that because this leads me to my final point, which I think was actually going to be my first point, and then I just got sucked into the drama of talking about how shitty this film is. Once upon a time, a young me, circa 11th of May 2014, wrote an article on coltonsreviews.tumblr.com where pre watch review repeat, I didn't have a medium to just say
Let it out.
everything that I felt about movies. I had to put it into the written form. I had to type it out on keyboards and say my piece to no one particularly because they weren't listening or they weren't reading. I'm not saying we have a lot of listeners, but I'm sure there are more listeners of this podcast than there are readers of my Tumblr that I made in 2014. But once upon a time, I wrote my magnum opus. I wrote an article entitled, Why The Amazing Spider-Man 2 Sucks. Now, it would take me probably a full 30 minutes to read the entire article, but I will offer the first 3 paragraphs of this, and I'll put a link to this in the episode description for anyone that wants to see it through, to read it as I wrote it in 2014, as I wrote it 7+ years ago when this movie came out. I'm just gonna read it, and I think it's a good summary of my thoughts on Amazing Spider-Man 2. The thing is, when I wrote this in 2014, I was angry. I was very angry. I was upset.
Yeah,
I was very disappointed. I don't know that my expectations were super high for this film, because I thought like Electro's design was dumb, and like Dane DeHaan sucks, and like, the first one was like fine or whatever. Not a big, it's like not great, but like it was fine. So my expectations were like probably like okay, like not high, not particularly low. But this movie did not deliver on any of those expectations. Whereas I watch it now and I think, yeah, this is probably legitimately one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. And I revisit it, and the time I watched it was actually the only time I've seen it since it came out in theaters, at the time that I wrote this article. And I thought, it's not making me angry. I can't find the capacity in me to give a fuck anymore about this. Like, I'm so detached from this, and I'm just like, of course it's bad. Everyone knows it's just bad. It is what it is. But let me share just that very slight chunk of anger.
Go for it.
That I had when I saw Amazing Spider-Man 2 back in the day. The beginning of the summer blockbuster season is in full swing with the release of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, a continuation of 2012's The Amazing Spider-Man. The sequel again features Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker / Spider-Man and Emma Stone as, who cares? Anyone reading this probably knows this already, and if you don't, make sure to check out The Amazing Spider-Man, a movie that takes nearly an hour to explain that a movie called The Amazing Spider-Man is about a guy who gets bit by a spider and gains superpowers. I'm glad that the filmmakers put such painstaking effort into explaining this concept, since it's not like there was a movie called Spider-Man that covered the exact same thing. My point is that The Amazing Spider-Man is an unbelievably boring movie, an unnecessary retread, hampered by a soporific script. It makes sense that Sony would opt to go into a different direction for the sequel by introducing some fresh elements to craft a more compelling story. The end result is The Amazing Spider-Man 2, where marketing informs us that Spider-Man's greatest battle begins. Hey, that sounds intriguing, but there's just one problem. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 sucks. No, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 isn't boring like its predecessor was. Sony has instead delivered one of the most insultingly stupid movies I've ever had the misfortune of watching. If it weren't for the existence of Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, this honestly might be the dumbest movie ever made. And while bad movies get made all the time, it takes a special kind of awful to elicit the type of reaction I had towards this movie. Very little in this movie makes any sort of sense. The plot's incoherent, a string of sequences that don't flow in any meaningful way, weighed down by inane dialogue and poor characterization. The tone of the film radically shifts sequence to sequence, creating an uneven experience that feels like material from 4 different films were shoved into one. And at a whopping 2 hours and 22 minutes, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is hindered by horrible pacing, a byproduct of a bloated and poorly edited film. So how did it come to this? The Amazing Spider-Man 2 boasts a tremendously talented cast to work with, the rich comic book history of the Spider-Man character to cull from, and some stunning visual effects work to dazzle. In order for a movie to succeed, it needs substance to accompany the flash. This is the ultimate failing of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It features a terrible script that no amount of exceptional acting or splendid effects can possibly save. But enough talk about how bad this movie is. Let's examine exactly what makes The Amazing Spider-Man 2 a catastrophic failure by exploring the absurdity that pervades nearly every single scene in the film. And I shit you not, I went beat for beat with this fucking movie. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 35 paragraphs.
Fuck yeah, dude. Nailed it. How you feel?
You gotta
about
make
that?
it known.
This is good.
You gotta
Have your
make it
feelings
known.
changed?
No.
No.
I reread this after I watched, I read, so the part that I just read aloud, I read before I watched Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I was just like, oh, that's pretty fucking harsh. Watched the movie, reread everything, and I was just like, I agree with myself. I knew what I was talking about. There's a few typos here and there. Some of the writing is not how I would write things, 7+ years later. But on the whole, I think I stand by what I said.
I read it when it came out, and I was like, "Holy shit! Yeah, this movie sucks." And it's so disappointing. I think the thing is like, Spider-Man 3 is probably, if we're going into like all the movies, like it's the most disappointing sequel. But this is the worst movie, and I think making a bad Spider-Man movie is kind of a crime. Because there's so much good stuff you can use. And like I think back to like a few of my favorite stories, and the one that probably fits most into this would be like Spider-Man Blue, the Jeff Loeb one. It's like after the fact, but it's like retelling of Peter Parker. It's really a love story between Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy, and I think it's really well done. And I think the first movie set up some like good starting beats for that relationship, and this movie destroyed everything. Even though you had great chemistry from two actors, like you just created the stupidest plot line for them to do. Like it ruins any potential that the first one had, and then somehow goes above and beyond that and just starts introducing new dumb shit to it.
Honestly, it ruins potential beyond just what the first one set up, in the sense that I almost feel like a lot of the ground that this covered is now never allowed to be covered in future films. Not for decades.
It kind of like ruins things. Yeah, like
Gwen Stacy is not allowed to be in live action films anymore because of this. You know what I mean? Like, like we get Spider-Gwen and the Spider-Verse films, and that's fine because it's very different and out there. But like, no more Gwens.
No more Harry Osborns.
No more Harry Osborns. Like it's just like anything that just got completely fucked by this. Like
no more rhinos.
No more rhinos. And I'll
would say a good rhino.
I would say, like, all right, no more Electros, no more lizards. But maybe No Way Home will beg to differ on that front. We definitely know that Jamie Foxx will be back. In some incarnation, I guess we'll say. He's not blue. We know he's not blue from some things that we've seen, thankfully. But
it's rough, man.
They fucked it. They fucked it nice and good with this one,
right? And I think like some of these characters you see in other things, like we talked about Into the Spider-Verse, the Spider-Man PS4 video game is fantastic and such a great Spider-Man story. It's probably one of my favorite Spider-Man stories. Like
it's a great story. It's really great.
It's just like the characters are done so well. The Sinister Six is done well, and like even in the minor characters like are still like better than anything that this movie would have to offer.
Yeah, you get a great MJ in that, and obviously even there's still a push and pull and a back and forth in terms of the romance of it. But you get good like, villains. You get a great Otto. You get a great Otto in that one as well.
Otto is great. It's like as good as Spider-Man 2's Alfred Molina. Like
we get fucking Miles set up in there too. Obviously,
So like if you
there's a whole game separate to that with Miles too.
If anyone like watches this movie and is like fuck Spider-Man, I'm out. Like go play some video games. And
the Insomniac games are great. Well worth checking out.
Right.
So,
and obviously it's great comics. Like go read some
comics.
Read some stuff.
Yeah. Do you have any? I realize this is really more directed towards you, Enrique. Andrew, I'm kind of leaving you in the dust with this one. Do you have any good comics recommendations for like Spider-Man things? Like The Amazing Spider-Man 2 leaves you with a bad taste. What do you do now?
Yeah. I 100% echo Spider-Man Blue. It's a short, isolated story that you can go to. Like it's not a whole series. Like it's literally like six issues or something. Like you can get the trade paperback. Yeah. It's its own thing. And I love the Ultimate Spider-Man run, like the original stuff. So like with Peter Parker leading into Miles Morales, like that's great, and gives you a great sense of the villains there too. And obviously, a character we've never gotten yet, but I don't know. I doubt he's in No Way Home, but like in the future, I'd love to see Craven. Like Craven's Last Hunt
Craven's
is
fucking
is
cool.
a classic Spider-Man story. Like it's again an isolated thing that you can just go to and like read that. It's just so different from any of the other stuff. So like if you want more of like a great romance story, Spider-Man Blue. If you want a great kind of like mystery, slightly, I don't know, I wouldn't call it horror, but like a little bit darker kind of Spider-Man story, like Craven's Last Hunt is fantastic. And then just like a fun everyday thing, Ultimate Spider-Man, any of those runs are great. Like you get Venom in there, you get Black Cat, you get Carnage, you get everybody, and it's slightly different. You get Nick Fury, like it's great.
Yeah,
so those are some of my favorites.
I'm a big fan of Ultimate Spider-Man as well, so I do highly recommend that. It's different than your 16 or 616 Spider-Man. Some of it I like better, some of it I don't like as much. But I think it's a really, really great riff on high school Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But because it had the luxury of having everyone established by the time that they wrote that, they could kind of integrate other characters like Gwen and MJ are all kind of incorporated up front.
Yeah.
And it hits on kind of every quintessential Spider-Man villain with like a new little riff on them for most of them. And it just does the teenage Spidey, teenage Peter Parker thing really, really well.
It does it well. Yeah. And actually, like if you're less into comics, the Spectacular Spider-Man, that's one of my favorite TV shows. Like
it's
only two seasons.
That's great.
But it nails Peter Parker. It nails Gwen Stacy. Harry Osborn's pretty good in it, but like those two characters are done really well, and like that's I think quintessential, like Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy. Like those are great.
I totally agree. I have a lot of nostalgia for the '90s Spider-Man animated show, but Spectacular is like that's top tier.
It's
just
really
getting everything
it.
right, kind of animation for Spidey. So yeah, I think that probably more or less does it. Any other thoughts on Amazing Spider-Man 2? Can we lay it to rest?
Just kill it.
Finally.
Bury it.
Thank God. All right, so I was going to have everyone do a Spider-Man franchise rankings, but I kind of feel like we might all be on the same page here. I think everyone can get a pretty good sense of where we're at least for these first 5. You know, I think that the first 5, I'd be surprised if you guys disagree.
Sure, no, lay out your order and see if
well, so I think Spider-Man 2 is the best, followed by Spider-Man, followed by, I guess, The Amazing Spider-Man, the first one.
Yeah.
Followed by Spider-Man 3, and then putting The Amazing Spider-Man 2 at the very bottom. Maybe you'd flip-flop. I think Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Man 3 are probably the only two that I would like arguably like I could conceive an argument where you flip-flop those, but is that about where you guys were at?
Sounds about right to me.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm getting some nods. Nods.
On point.
All right. So I think the Tom Holland ones, those are the harder ones to kind of, throw into the rankings. But we won't do that. We'll save that for No Way Home. That way we can do a complete, throw another Spider-Man trilogy into the bunch. Maybe we'll do a complete rankings of live action films at that point. Once everyone has an opportunity to see No Way Home, which is out in theaters now. Enrique's seeing it very soon after we record this. Andrew's going to see it sometime soon, I'm sure, if he can fucking find tickets for it, because this thing's going to do gangbusters. Enrique called it. You called it once upon a time.
I bought 3 separate tickets just
Holy
to
shit.
secure it. I had tickets for tomorrow morning, I had tickets for tomorrow evening, and then Saturday evening. Unfortunately, I'm going to the latest one, Saturday evening.
Ah, okay.
So I'm going on blackout. I took off YouTube, took off Twitter, took off Instagram, all the things for my phone.
Probably for the best, because spoilers, I'm sure, are bound to be rampant. This feels like an Avengers Endgame type of event of just the critical mass, and just in terms of the hype levels and so
fucking Doctor Strange is in this movie. Are you excited?
Doctor
about
Strange.
That?
Well, that's not a spoiler. Doctor Strange is in it. That's not a spoiler. So that's something to get excited for sure.
And so is Wong.
Doctor Strange is involved.
Delivering those I saw a couple memes before I deleted the Facebook.
Little spicy takes.
It's like, hey, don't do this. Like PSAs.
Yeah, maybe some bad things will happen. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. Who's to say? We'll have to talk about that. So yeah, we are really looking forward to Spider-Man: No Way Home. We'll be covering it as our next episode. Of course, I think we can probably just save some more thoughts until we reconvene for No Way Home. Does that sound good to everyone?
That's fair. I'll hold him in.
All right, hold it in, Spider-Mans. Okay. Anna at one point expressed interest in doing a listener's corner in this episode, so I might try to wrangle her, and if you guys are up for that, and see if she's got some thoughts to offer up. But otherwise we'll keep it going. But let's see if she's up for it. So, without further ado, she is in fact going to offer some thoughts on all of the Spider-Mans that we just talked about for entirely too long. Anna Mattis.
Anna Mattis.
Welcome.
Let's hear
What have you to say about Spider-Man 1, 2, 3, Amazing Spider-Man 1, 2?
What do you?
Oh, so the main thing.
Yeah, what do you think?
The main thing was looking at these 5 movies. 2 of them I had only seen. Or no, I'm sorry. I'm counting Homecoming because we also watched Homecoming.
Okay.
So I guess that's kind of outside the scope of this, but too bad. 2 of the Spider-Man movies that we rewatched in preparation for No Way Home, I had only seen once before.
Oh.
One was Homecoming, which is funny because Far From Home I saw in theaters like 3 times. And Homecoming I never even saw in theaters. But the other one was Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Oh.
Obviously, those are very, very different movies and had not seen them more than once for very different reasons. Homecoming, it just like hadn't happened. I didn't have time to do it in a rewatch. I never owned it. Amazing Spider-Man 2, I remember why I had not seen it again. And I believe as soon as we were finished, I said to Colton, please don't ever make me watch that again. Because it was terrible. I think for the Raimi movies, the third is just so cringe that I am physically uncomfortable when I watch it. So that has always been a very hard rewatch for me. But I think the first one is good. And I think the second one, Spider-Man 2, is genuinely a great film and extremely rewatchable. And the one Spider-Man movie I have seen the most times, and like I feel like in high school and stuff, like if that was on TV, like on TNT or whatever, I would sit down and I would watch it. Like if I was scrolling channels and that came up, I would sit down and I would watch the whole movie because it's so good. So that part was actually very fun to like go back and watch something that I still hadn't watched in quite a while. But I think probably the thing I noticed most about watching each of the 3 Spider-Mans was just who like captured Peter Parker best, or like which parts of him were captured best. And I think also when I had watched these initially, like I hadn't really, and I still haven't really read much in the comics, but I know more. And so I think that's colored it a little bit. But I found that especially pre-Tom Holland, it just felt like they're always trying to make Peter older. They're always trying to make him a college student. And like the whole point of Peter Parker as your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is he's a teenager. He's a kid. Like that's the whole point. He's a snarky kid who has funny one-liners because he's a teenager. And like teenage boys are little shits. And that's kind of what makes it fun. And I think that's why for so many people, like Tom Holland has been such a refreshing Spider-Man, because even though he's obviously like aging out, not aging out of the role, but aging up from what it was, initially, it just feels like it's the only one where he's been like allowed to be a teenager.
Yeah. And like I think there's a way to do like an older Spider-Man, but that's not what they were trying to do.
Right. They were origin stories. So it's just it feels it feels not jarring, but just so different when they're allowing Peter to be a kid versus trying so hard to make him like a grown up and a college student and, all of that. And I think that I think probably also Spider-Verse was felt like it captured
Yeah, it was
like,
so good.
Spider-Man
Spider-Verse
so
was
well,
fucking
too.
excellent.
Yeah.
Chef's
I don't know
kiss.
if you guys did a ranking, but if you guys did,
We didn't include
like-
Spider-Verse, but
see that because it'd be everyone's number one.
it's so good. So
Like that's why.
I mean,
So how could it not? But it was very fun rewatching these. I think obviously Spider-Man is better than Amazing Spider-Man on so many levels.
Agreed,
I think the kind of one redeeming thing for me for Amazing Spider-Man is just Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, because they were together throughout the entire thing. Like they just have yes. Like I said to Colton before we even watched it, the only thing I remembered about Amazing Spider-Man 2, because I liked it, was the kiss at graduation. And it's because that was not in the script. Andrew Garfield just did it because he wanted to. And like that's why it's so good, because it's the one moment that's like real and natural and doesn't feel totally bizarre.
that was improvised. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I remember reading that. I should have fact checked that. But I do remember reading that like way back in the day, like when it first came out, and like really liking that. And I also I love their SNL sketch when I think Andrew was the one hosting it, but they have a very funny sketch of
They're
them
just like doing a weird makeout.
yeah. And it's very funny and it holds up. And like obviously they're not together anymore, but they were just a very cute couple and like just, had so much chemistry, which made it fun. And I think the other strength of the Raimi one over Amazing Spider-Man is just the villains are so much better, because Amazing Spider-Man villains are just the
worst.
Dane DeHaan, why? Why did we ever give him roles? Why did we ever? You guys will have to watch Place Beyond the Pines in preparation for our wedding next year, because it takes place in Schenectady, but Dane DeHaan is in that, and he is bad.
Text me the name of that movie. I'll watch it.
I will, yeah. Yeah, it's Ryan Gosling, Bradley Cooper, Eva Mendes, Mahershala Ali, Ray Liotta, Dane DeHaan, and then some other kid who's very stupid and like speaks with a Long Island accent, even though like Schenectady is nowhere near Long Island. It's not a very good film, but it's like fun because so it'll be relatable. But anyway, thanks for letting me stop by and sharing my thoughts on
what a listener's corner. That's excellent. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Tell Obi I said hi.
I will tell Obi you say hi. Also, because I won't be here for the sign off. Once again, fuck you, Hans Zimmer.
We can echo that.
Yeah, I had no idea he was part of that. That's insane.
Some more dubstep for everyone. All right. Well, I think that might be it.
Right.
Any other final thoughts?
That's it.
Raimi, Webb, Spider-Man, etc.
Right. Like Raimi's not perfect, especially with 3, but it does it better than Webb. Like, yeah. And then we'll talk about the John Watts trilogy as soon as I can watch it. And if anyone spoils it for me, I will have all my multiverse versions of myself come find you and come beat you up.
Well, Anna has departed, but she's left me with 2 parting gifts as my final thoughts. Fun facts, if you will, to add some more fun facts to the pile of fun facts. One being that if you guys haven't seen it, and there's a version of Spider-Man called Spider-Man 2.1, which incorporates this back into the film. There's a good scene of J. Jonah Jameson wearing the Spider-Man suit at one point.
Oh yeah, it's great.
It's very good. So check that out for sure. And the other one, perhaps I should have started with this one. This is not a particularly good note to end on, but at one point in Spider-Man 1, you can see the World Trade Center towers reflected in Spider-Man's lenses for a brief second. I don't know if you guys know about this, but there was a teaser trailer once upon a time.
I remember
that depicted a sequence where Spider-Man foils a bank heist. The criminals flee in a helicopter, and he captures the helicopter, suspends him in webbing, between the World Trade Center towers.
It's pretty fucking epic. I actually, like I said,
it's a great
I mean,
teaser
normally,
trailer.
it's go for it.
You could someone did a 4K scan of it. They found, I think, the 35 millimeter canister of the trailer itself and scanned it so that it could be viewed in 4K. So you can find like a really, really nice quality version of this teaser. And it's a great teaser. I mean, it's cool because it's basically a whole sequence that's not ultimately in the final film itself. Sam Raimi said recently that it actually was at one point intended to be, and then unfortunately 9/11 happened, and they kind of just, made the creative decision, like, this is, we have to pull this. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, we can't do this. It's it's coming out literally a year after, less than a year after 9/11 happens. So of course, you'd have to make the decision to pull that from the film, but it's still a very interesting kind of relic of its time, and seeing that teaser, and it's an effective kind of like setup of like, this is what Spider-Man's all about, especially for audiences like 20 plus years ago, like, or not quite. Well, I guess when it came out, it might have been 20 plus years ago when that teaser would have come out, I guess, to just be like, this is Spider-Man, like, obviously the comic had been around for decades at that point, but you haven't seen it in live action quite this way. So check out the teaser. It's on YouTube. Just search for like Spider-Man band teaser trailer or something like that, and you can find it. So yeah, a couple of fun facts to just to throw them at the listeners last minute. But all right, that'll do it for our coverage of Spider-Man, right?
That'll do.
I'm good.
For now, to be continued, of course. Thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, please spread the word. Talked about it at the beginning of the episode. If you want to support us on Patreon, head to patreon.com/watchreviewrepeat. Get early access to all of our regular episodes, as well as timed exclusive access to any future bonus episodes. If you have any... Oh, skipping ahead. Our website is watchreviewrepeat.com. We're on Twitter at WRRPod. We're on that gross website, Facebook, if you want to search for our page. Watch, Review, Repeat. We, I suppose, still technically use it. Our intro and out. God damn it, I'm skipping ahead again. Send any questions, comments, or suggestions. We'll do a proper listener's corner on the No Way Home episode if people send some thoughts in. watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com. Otherwise, maybe we'll have to do another impromptu listener's corner in a different fashion. We'll see how things go. But our intro and outro track, I got it right this time. Mechanolith by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. We will return with our coverage of Spider-Man No Way Home. Talked about bringing some of the villains back from these films that we've talked about at length now. Tom Holland's back. He's Spider-Man. What's he up to? We'll find out.
We'll see all
Stay
about.
Tuned. What was it all about? We'll find out. You got to stay tuned. There's going to be a lot to unpack with this one. I'm sure of it. So stay tuned for our coverage of Spider-Man: No Way Home, and we'll catch you then. Thanks, Henrique, for hanging out with us for a few hours, and look forward to him returning shortly.
No, thanks for having me as always.
All right, Andrew.
Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Laters on the Menche.